another episode of Tech Tip Tuesday, Tech Tipper Tuesday. I know we dubbed it a new name, so I'm gonna wait for some people to get in. We're doing for anybody watching the recording, we're doing a Ledger Nano X, I believe is the winner. We're gonna unbox that and then give one away at the end of the episode. So if you have any questions, let me just pull something up here. Yep, it's the Nano X. That's the winner. All right, so I didn't have two camera views, so I just kind of, I raised it quite a bit and then positioned it down. That way I can at least show the process right here. Yo, what's up, Chris? Thanks for tuning in. How you doing today? So I'm going to show something because I was watching this episode before. Yo, what's up, Gary? Hope you guys are doing well today. Happy Taco Tuesday. I need to, I really want to prep this vegan recipe for you guys on Thursdays, but it takes like 48 hours to prep. But it's fucking delicious. It's my rendition of a pulled pork adobo using cauliflower, and it doesn't taste anything like cauliflower. Got plenty of people who can vouch for it. It's insane. Yo, all right, I just want to play this real quick.
No one would ever voluntarily hold a fiat currency. Why would you ever choose to hold a money that someone can arbitrarily diminish?
I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but you know me, you know how long I've been a fan of this technology, and I highly recommend watching this video. I haven't watched it all the way through, but Robert Breedlove has been responsible for helping me introduce a lot of people with zero prior knowledge to crypto into crypto and actually understand the use cases and all the benefits, right? So it's just a very, very interesting perspective, and he's done his fair share of research. So cauliflower pizza. I don't think I've ever made one of those. I think I've pre-done one of those crusts before, but I can't say that I have. Interesting. I've heard of this before. I actually tried this recipe. It was fire. It was delicious. And it was like a buffalo chicken cauliflower pizza, homemade, everything. My face was on fire because anytime it calls for spices, I don't know about you guys, but guys and girls, but I fucking anything, like I'll triple it. I'll add habanero. I'll add whatever fresh peppers I got. But let's get into it. So here's what we're all here for. The Nano X1, the first unboxing giveaway. So we're going to start off with this one. I'm shocked this is the one that was the most requested, to be honest. I get it, the Bluetooth, but I'm just shocked because in theory, I don't want to FUD Bluetooth, but in theory, if you use this in a location that has a lot of traffic and there is the right person in a vicinity, they could intercept the signal. Just food for thought. So this type of hardware wallet should be used at home. You know what I mean? That would be my only negative on Bluetooth hardware wallets. If you're in a public space, you know what I mean? You just never know. What's up? Anthony, thanks for tuning in. Yes, Peppers. Let's fucking go, Scotty. What's good? I just like going through and pinning it. I like this new feature. Let's bring it back. Let's get into it, because I know you didn't come here for impact theory, but if anybody's unaware, I got a shill for the homie. Tom Bilyeu is launching his first of many NFT projects, and I just got a response saying I'm on the whitelist, which is dope, for the legendary tier. So you already know I was going after that. So peace of mind. But I know there's a limit on the whitelist, so you know damn right I'm gonna be in the secondary. All right, let's get into it. I should probably show you guys this, huh? See, I'll have a second camera here pretty soon. So I'm gonna mount that new one up there. And then this Sony, I'm gonna, use as a little secondary angle and like point of view somehow with another tripod. I think it should be dope. But here's the box. It's sleek. I don't know about you guys, but I'm weird. I like boxes like this. I'll keep them afterwards if it's a device that I use frequently for like little shit. When I used to rock jewelry, believe it or not, I would stash them in little boxes like this. All right. Pretty dope. Pretty dope. I like the shield. That's a very fucking sturdy protection around your device right there. It's not cheap. Some type of, I don't know, stainless steel sheeting with a matte finish. It's pretty dope. See, it's got any battery? Yeah. So you got your start your crypto journey securely with Ledger Live. Go now to ledger.com/start. So we'll get to it. I'll plug it in. Does anybody want to see me plug this in? It's pretty straightforward. It's a USB-C cable. Comes in the box just like this. What else is underneath here? A little keychain lock thing. Hey, I like the quality of the cable, because you never know with some of these manufacturers. Like they'll plop in some cheap ass thin cabling, but this is some nice braided. I don't know if you guys can see it. If it auto-focused right there. Yep. It's old school USB-C, that rectangle, that familiar look to the USB-C. I'm assuming if you got USB-C or Thunderbolt, aka Thunderbolt, on your PC, and you just have that straight up cable and you lose this one, I'd imagine you can plug it in directly just like that. Oh, it does say critical battery, so they didn't charge it. So it doesn't go all the way in. Definitely doesn't go all the way in. So be cautious. If you're looking for that snug fit, the cable out of the box does not do it. Food for thought. So I wish I could show you the screen. It's just saying critical battery. I probably should have thought to unbox this before and charge it. Hold up. Hey, so yeah, it's just that cable's like the appearance is nice and all, but my cable worked way better. It's actually snug and it's actually charging. Huh. So I know I complimented this cable, but it didn't do shit. Did not do shit. Didn't plug it all the way. So you might need to get an extra USB-C cable if you do get a Nano X. I'll see if I have an extra one for the lucky winner. But I'm probably just going to use my own just based off of that first experience and the fact I got them. You know what I mean? But so we're just gonna give it a moment. Let's jam. What do you guys? What's in the Twitterverse? What's in the news? Anybody want to shill any projects? Why not? Anybody got something on their mind? Let's just give this like a minute. Or we can do like one of those fill-ins, in class and call it like a 10-minute intermission. We can come back. I can play Tom Billieu in the meantime. The floor is yours. Made in France. I like that. Jupiter blew up. Gods of Rock are minting now. Jupiter blew up. Jupiter Planet Dow. Uranus blew up. Zinger. Burn. Let's go take a look. Let's see what you talking about, Willis. What you talking about, Willis? I remember it went offline, but what? It blew up too? And no, Uranus is still minting, bro. Go get them while they're hot. Oh, no, offline. Oh, y'all have cracked me up. I do admit, so when this public sale went live, I thought they were doing it in order of the planets. So I thought it was Mercury first. It's like, all right, cool. I got some time till Pluto. By the time I got back and like really realized what was going on with all the planets being on sale, Pluto was sold out. I'm like, motherfucker, that I had my eye on Pluto since day one. And sure enough, that floor is 3 times, almost 3x last I checked. Although I know a lot of the planets are taking hits because people are just minting them because you get the free token. Oh yeah, there's a little promo going on right now. Jupiter's offline. So right now through the 31st, I think there's like up to 10,000. I'm not sure how far along they are. But if you mint any of the other planets, you get a free mint pass and a Jupiter token. Some interesting game theory they did. Oh, let's go back to it. I'm just gonna do a little.
I can answer that question, and I think this becomes part of the debate around what this is going to look like in a post-fiat world. But the answer is that you trust the government, that you were born into a system where the government seems stable and trustable. Your parents did it, and so it's like,
yeah, you know, we're gonna have to charge this thing. So I wasn't expecting this. Good to know for future giveaways. I'm gonna unbox them prior and make sure the device is charged. Because usually, you know, these things from the factory, they go through a QC process, right? They have to. So they usually come with a little bit of juice, but ever since I plugged this thing in, it said critical battery. So I'm gonna play some Tom Billieu, go get a snack real quick. Let's touch base in like 10 minutes at 455, I think is a good number. Should give this enough charge. So yeah, I'll be right back. Enjoy the show.
like a promise made by somebody that you trust implicitly.
Yes.
And so, for instance, I'm relatively bright and educated, and until about 18 months ago, I just thought you make as much US dollar as you can, you put it under your mattress and you're fine. And then I was introduced to the idea of inflation and how even 2% becomes problematic really fast, 7% becomes terrifying, and 15% you're devastated in less than a decade. And I was like, what? So that put me on this mad scramble. As somebody who never wanted to learn about investing, I was like, I'm good at making money. I have no interest in learning about finance or investing. And every time I would speak to my money manager, I was like, this is dumb. I don't want to learn about calls and puts and options. It's so complicated. So given how complicated it is, I just want to trust the government. So I would choose it out of laziness and terror.
Yes. So we're all prone to seek out cognitive expedience. And I would say even the dollar itself, you don't want dollars per se. You don't want a definite amount of dollars. You want purchasing power.
But I don't realize it. You're right.
Yes.
But I don't realize it.
That's right. As a matter of cognitive expedience, you think in terms of dollars instead. And this is where you get deeper into what is money. Money is also a psychotechnology. It's like literacy or numeracy. It's a software implementation we put into our brain. We use it to communicate, negotiate, plan. I mean, how many times a day do you think in dollars? It's something that's deeply embedded in our cognitive machinery. And that gets into my argument later about why central banking is kind of a computer virus on the human brain. But I think what would be an appropriate avenue here is to think, okay, you've been pursuing dollars your whole life. What you're actually pursuing is what those dollars can get you. That's what money is, right? Money is the most exchangeable good you can think of it as a call option on anything the market can produce. So any good, any service, any knowledge, human time, anything people can do, any service anyone can render for you, money is a call option on that. And that's why it's the most valuable or apex good in a marketplace. So what it
I love it.
ultimately
Slowly but
means
surely
is that money is the most important form of property. So what we're all really after, all of our businesses, our lifestyles, our governments, these are property strategies, if you will. These are ways to reach consensus on property, to distribute property in an equitable way, in a way that we all determine to be fair, right? Fair and equitable. So it will probably help here we're setting up a lot of rabbit holes. We'll go into the property rabbit hole first. We typically think property is the house, the car, the stock, whatever. That's not what property is. Property is a relationship. It's an exclusively acknowledged relationship between the owner and the asset, right? The fact that you own this house and no one else can come into it. If they did, you have recourse to the government, right? The apparatus of compulsion and coercion. You can call the police force and say, hey, this guy is violating my property. Please remove him. That is the foundation of civilization. When we can go and take our most personal form of property, which is ourselves, right? And this is something we're talking offline, self-ownership. This is the foundational axiom on which all of this libertarian capitalistic philosophy is based. You own yourself. Only you can move your arm. Only you can move your leg, right? You can't even sell that property. You can't trade away your consciousness or your willpower to anyone else. You own it and it's inalienable, cannot be traded away. What you choose to do with that self-ownership, you go out into the world and you voluntarily add value to something, right? You plant a garden, you build a business, or you trade the fruits of your labor with other self-owned people. That's how we create wealth, right? That's what enables us to focus, specialize, and create wealth. So the basis of civilization is that relationship between the owner and their asset, which we call property. Money.
Yeah, it's gaining a little steam, so we're on track. 5 more minutes, we'll be good to go. And I'm thinking about unboxing some other ones just to start charging them. Why not? Enjoy the show. Be back in 5.
Is just a reflection of the wealth in the world, right? The property that we have created through this capitalistic process. When you give one organization, right, this is all based on free market dynamics, but when you give one organization legal monopoly privileges, which is what the central bank is, to now monopolize money and control its issuance, they have a mechanism to violate the property rights of all other economic actors that are using dollars, that are denominating assets in dollars. So this is something that's so fundamental that it contradicts the premise of self-ownership when we give power away to a single institution that can arbitrarily, at a political whim, choose to violate the relationships of all economic actors using that money.
Watermelon you doing right now? If the answer isn't joining Impact Theory's Discord community, all I can say is that you are missing out. You are missing out
I
on
love this
incredible
one.
fellow impactivists, missing out on exclusive
Not his
content,
ad. I'm talking about the comment I just pinned.
Access to me, missing out on what I was talking about in that first sentence, and you will miss out on the biggest thing I will ever do. You will miss out on Impact Theory Founder's Key. This was originally codenamed the Full Meal Deal, and it will be your ultimate key to unlocking all the things we are working on. Impact Theory will be leading the charge into this metaverse, blockchain, NFT space, and I want to make sure that you don't miss out. This opportunity will be huge, not only
so
for
I
Impact
submitted,
Theory, but for you.
go
as
to
you
their
navigate
Discord.
the
You
new
can still
digital world
submit.
that is coming. Go to
You can still submit if you go to the Discord.
impacttheory.com/discord
Go to the
and click
announcements.
start here to
You
get
can even
in
still submit
on
for
the
the
fun. And
legendary
I'm telling
too.
you, this is
So go
really
check it out.
the best community on Discord. The choice is yours. Are you going to get in, or are you going to miss out? There's a link and more info in the description copy. All right, guys, take care and be legendary. Peace.
So that's a bit of the what is property rabbit hole. We could go into gold next.
Well, first, let's go back to what you said, that nobody would voluntarily choose a fiat currency. And the reasoning behind that is okay, you have a portion of the total, whatever that portion is. So the number of dollars that you have represents a dollar of the a percentage of the total. If they can change the total at any time, they can dilute you. And so your perception is that the value of your house is going up, but the reality is the value, the buying power of the dollar is going down.
That's correct.
And so it creates the mental equivalent of an optical illusion.
Yes.
So you think, oh my God, I'm winning. This is amazing.
Yes.
But in reality, you have opted into a system where human beings, like you said, arbitrarily make a decision as to whether or not they're going to inflate that by just. And this was, I am embarrassed by how recently I thought this. I actually asked somebody, and this I think less than a year ago, I said, where do they take the bags of money that they're printing? Like, whose doorstep are they dropping them off at? And of course, the answer is it's a database and it's just a data entry. Right. But even that, whose data entry are they changing?
You're right. This is an important point, actually. The US dollar is a one node database. It's on an SQL server at the Federal Reserve. So it's the list of who owns what dollars. And there's one group of individuals that update it for everyone else arbitrarily. And to your earlier point about inflation, I think it's best to think about this as like a cap table, right? When you own a business and you have shares in a business that you're buying and selling, you wouldn't arbitrarily give one group the ability to just issue new shares whenever they want and dilute everyone else. That would clearly be asymmetric and unfair to the shareholders. Yet that's exactly the model we have in money. Exactly. Right. That you can think it's another way to think about money, maybe, is it's a share in the capital stock of the world, right? My share of the US dollar supply gives me a fraction of whatever US dollars can buy. If money is a reflection of the total capital pool or the total savings, that's what it effectively represents in its purchasing power. But when one group can just twist the rules to favor themselves and disfavor everyone else, you have a disequilibrated structure or an asymmetric monopolized structure. So hopefully that explains inflation and property a little bit.
It does. Putting a real fine point on why it's theft, though, because theft implies ill intent. I don't know if that's what you intend. In fact, let's start there. Do you intend that ill intent is afoot?
I would say it's more the arbitrariness, right? I don't necessarily want to dig into the intent so much as mechanically what happens. It's an arbitrary redistribution of wealth or property from one group to another. So they're diluting the property rights of dollar holders. Anyone depending on the dollar to store its value is being victimized. And those getting access to the freshly produced or printed money first are the victimizers. They're the ones actually extracting wealth from that group. And this is especially abhorrent because if you think who depends on the dollar to store its value the most, the poor, those living on fixed income, pensioners, retirees, right? People living paycheck to paycheck. These are the people being stolen from. So I'm not going to make a claim about intent. There's a lot of arguments about, oh no, central banking, they don't mean to be doing what they're doing. They think they're doing what's in everyone's best interest. Fine, I'll accept the argument. But mechanically, those depending on the dollar are being robbed by central banks and those that receive the newly printed money first.
And who receives the newly printed money and how is that decided? And printed again is by changing numbers in the database.
Yes. So a lot of the beneficiaries are asset holders, right?
Name some assets.
Real estate, stocks.
So I own both of those. How do I benefit? Because I'm terrified of inflation.
Right.
So why am I not excited?
Because when money, the store value function of money is compromised, which is what's happening when we inflict inflation, that the dollar's not holding its value over time. Market actors are smart, right? They're going to move into a reliably scarce asset. The most predominant store value in the world today are stocks, frankly. So stocks, real estate, all these things that are reliably scarce in an inflationary environment become store value assets. So people that hold those assets as a larger percentage of their total net worth will benefit at the expense of those relying on dollars to hold their value.
Because what database entry is changed in that scenario? It's not like they gave me more money for owning those.
Right. But your home will appreciate, right? And it's not based on supply and demand so much as it is based on central bank policy. So if you think about more dollars chasing the same amount of stuff, it's kind of the simple way to think about it. This implies higher home prices. And it's not a consequence of supply and demand in the marketplace per se. It's just that diminished unit of economic perception.
As part of the quote unquote printing of money, is the government buying like corporate bonds and things like that?
Yes, it's become
because that's
more
how they
exotic.
actually get it into the system, right? They go and buy a bunch of things, whether it's making sure that the California government doesn't default on their bonds and things like that. And then they actually buy things off of companies, right?
That's right. And this is I like to say central banking and the fiat currency complex is as clear as mud and twice as dirty.
Nice.
So it's very confounding to say the least. But essentially, the government is issuing new debt, right? Which the Federal Reserve is
that's
buying.
Plenty of time.
So they're
I think that's plenty of time. Let's yep. We can finish that or we can get to the unbox. I think we give it enough time for the testing purposes and for the demonstration. So let's get to it. Yeah, right. It was a cool little intermission. Oh, I love it. No need to apologize. I love it. We're on the same page. But that's pretty cool. It's like I know you remember Scott. I don't know how old everybody else is in here, but I'm sure a few others do. But they used to roll in that old school CRT looking fucking TV. Whoo, that was some of the best times. You know damn right it was nap time. All right, let's get to it. So there's this cool little envelope. Whew. I can't wait to get that other camera view because I'll just have it tuned in on my hands. We'll make it work. It'll be dope. Little recovery sheet. They have it in multiple languages. Got you some stickers. I'm just buying some time getting this thing a little more juice. Now, where I thought they give you like some type of recovery key sheet. It's on the back. So they give you 3 copies. So on the back of the multiple languages instructions, they give you the back so you can write it by hand. I don't know if you could see that. 37. Yep. So you remember those TVs. All right. So for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to create one because I'm assuming with these types of devices, I can just reset it and use it and create a whole new seed. So I want to show you guys everything, every single process here. So I'm going to do my best to make sure I can. And that means I have to show you the seed, I would imagine, right? For you to see every single step. So keep that in mind. Anybody watching this, there's going to be no activity on this wallet. Now, that's actually a good question. So if you guys would like to see me send and receive on it, if I'm going to send anything of value to this thing, I'm not going to explode the seed phrase. So what would you guys like to see? I'll let you guys dictate this right now. Do you want to see me do a couple test transactions? Or would you rather see the setup, the linking to the phone, every single step of the way to the point where you get that wallet address and you can send things to it? I think the whole point of the demonstration is to kind of go back and forth, but I'd love everybody's input. So I'll just give it a second. we'll just go with the flow. You know, I'll just go through the process and take it from there. So it still says low battery, but I'm gonna hope that it allows us to do our thing. So get Ledger Live. So you can do this on mobile because the App Store is available, Play Store for Android, Windows app. We'll do the Windows app for the sake of that's just where you should always do everything. Like everything. Cool, cool. We got you. I got you. So it's just going to download a file. We're following through on the Windows. You accept. And just run through the motion. Oh, they even have some cool video here too. We can watch over that. Or we can just walk through it. And this is what we got here. So, of course, we're going to go through and read that really, really quickly. Really, really quickly. Make it really easy. I'm just going to follow along. So this is cool, right? I'm not sure. Possibly. Yeah, was that me? I didn't get any notice that we disconnected. Let me go double check everything. Thank you for let me know if you guys want me to restart the process. Let me see what's good. Yeah, we look like we're live there. Testing, testing. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know. Everything on my end is hardwired, so maybe just a little glitch, hopefully. So sorry about that. Do you guys want me to rewind? Because I went through a couple steps there. Gotta love it. Gotta love the technical difficulties on a Tech Tip Tuesday here on BitmonkeyTV. Wouldn't expect anything else. So pretty much, I'm not sure how long you guys were disconnected for. I followed the instruction on that main envelope. Takes you to ledger.com/start. Takes you to these 1 of 4 steps. And you have the option to download the Ledger Live app. I chose Windows because, in my opinion, you should always set things up on a nice, clean OS, something that you know is secure. And you can never tell if a mobile is infected or not, right, out the gate. So, or if there's some type of screen capture. So if you can, I'd opt out of setting up on mobile. Always set up on desktop or workstation or laptop. That then downloaded a file. I opened that file. There was one step to read the terms and agreements. And then it allowed you to pick from 3 different devices, the Nano S, the Nano X, and then something else I didn't pay attention to. And now we're here. So I just caught you up there. So this is cool. Good step here. Now I'm curious to see, does this 24, and we'll do this live, does this 24 seed phrase, can you recover this on myetherwallet.com, the OG open source Ethereum wallet? Hey, no worries. Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure what happened. I'm pretty sure YouTube's been stable. I didn't get any notice on the disconnect, but I am hardwired. Had to double check. Yeah, I'm hardwired, so I think we're good. Let me know if you want me to rewind. I just kind of broke down the steps we just took to get here. And we're just going to set it up. First time use. The basics. Own your private key. Hey, you guys. Can you guys repeat after me? I will not give out my seed phrase. Or my private key. Somebody can sweep your wallet. Let's do this. Plan 30 minutes and take your time. Grab a pen to write with. Stay alone and choose a safe and quiet environment. All right. There we go. I was waiting for it. That way I can pin it. So yeah. This is going to be a throwaway seed because I want to show you guys step by step. And then what we'll do is we'll dedicate another episode because I know we had the intermission, blah, 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 all this. We won't keep this episode too long. We'll do the initial setup on this one, and then we'll break this one down another week based off of the feedback and anybody with any questions. So hop in the Discord if you aren't already in there. What you doing? There's going to be so many more giveaways like this. All right, so please be careful. Make sure you follow the instructions on this app at every step of the process. Okay. Okay, so I am way ahead of it. Let's run it back. Actually, I'm not. I usually am. Don't do this. I'll check this out. I know that when you first get into the Discord, you have to go to the verify and you have to press that monkey emoji. Did she do that? Hey, Scott, I might have broke it with all the changes I made. Shit. No rush. I'll look into it tonight. Let me know. I'll verify her manually. I'll do that right now. Where? Yeah, so along the left up here, it should open up like a rules or a welcome or maybe FAQ. No, I'm pretty sure it goes straight to verify. So let me know if it does. She did. Interesting. Yeah, you can see that she did. So I'll look into that. I appreciate it. Sorry about the glitches. With the changes that I made, something must have triggered that feature not to work. So I'll fix that. I'll just be mindful of anybody I see join to give them a tag. So monkeys. Yeah, shoot. Sorry about that, people. Oh, man, it's been going down. Hey, I thought it was working, so it looks like it's been doing it for a minute. Shoot. All right, I won't do this on air. Let's go back to it. But I do have some bad news. We are going to have to wait for this fucking thing to charge. Noted. Lesson learned. Shit. Don't just unbox it on air. Unbox. Charge it beforehand. Duly noted. So, you guys want to go back to an intermission? Give this thing like another. We can do like come back on 30 past the hour. I know, now we know. Now we know we can come back at 30 past the hour, or just run it real safe, end the stream, start a new stream at this next hour at 6/9. Hey man, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now we know. This is funny. This is funny. I can't help but smile and laugh. So, hey, I'm hungry. So this is a blessing in disguise. I feel like I should leave the stream running. I'll just go back to an intermission. We'll finish that Tom Bilyeu episode. I'm gonna put this thing on the speaker so I can listen. So for those who want to stay tuned in, this is gonna be a long ass recording, but fuck yeah. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea, so we're gonna roll with it. Back to intermission. I'll pin a little something something. I like the storytelling here, Gary. The NGMI there is just perfect. That explains so much in just 4 characters. All right, let's do it. We going? I'm gonna post a little something something, and I'm gonna go through this on my my little super speed USB charger that's over there. Hopefully speed up the process. Hey, this is a 2-hour episode. This is kind of cool. Fuck it.
Injecting dollars into the economy.
I'll be back.
That way.
Much love.
More
Appreciate you guys for being here.
where the Fed's actually spinning up special purpose vehicles to buy corporate debt directly. I think equities as well. And so what's happening is there's this confiscation of wealth taking place, and then the proceeds are being doled out arbitrarily. So you can think of the Fed or government beneficiaries of Fed policy as picking winners and losers. So this is antithetical to capitalism, right? Which capitalism is much more Darwinian, right? Survival of the fittest. If the business is producing profits and satisfying wants for people, then people will pay for it voluntarily, and that business will grow. If the business is unsatisfactory, it's not delivering good goods or services to people, people will abstain from doing business with that entity, and it will shrink and fail. And when that business fails, its capital will be reassimilated into the marketplace and put to higher and best use. That's what capitalism does. But when you have this arbitrary avenue of confiscation and wealth redistribution, it stymies that evolutionary impulse that capitalism gives us. So you end up with zombie companies, right? And it's funny that they use that term zombie, which is, I had a good conversation with a guy about this, how this has entered the modern mythology or lexicon, interestingly, right after 1971, which is when we went off the gold standard. The term zombie became much more widely used. But zombie companies are that. They're loss-producing enterprises. They're not satisfying anyone's wants, but they're kept on life support by central bank policy. So we have central bankers printing money to harvest the productive surplus of the economy, stealing from the productive economy, and then doling it out to these certain entities that are producing losses and keeping them alive. So it's very polluting in that way, if you will. It's toxifying to the Darwinian process, and I think that's why it degrades everything that's downstream from economics, like politics and culture, et cetera.
All right, I want to walk through one thread that all of this is me taking liberally from you. So tell me where I go astray here. But this was a chain of events that I was like, oh my God, I now actually understand what's going on, and this is terrifying. So you've got World War II happens, and you've got people invading countries and raiding their gold stores, because why would you invade if you're not going to get something, if you can't steal something? These are your words. So you invade a country, you steal their gold. So people are like, fuck, I don't want to get invaded. So they started, or if I do, I don't want them to be able to steal my gold. So they started sending gold to the US. US ends up storing all this gold for people, has a massive amount of gold. And gold historically basically money as we think of it, the tangible dollars and bills, you would store gold in a protected warehouse somewhere, and they would give you a paper that represented the amount of gold. So people, being savvy, started trading that because it's as good as gold, because you could go and cash it in. So now the US post World War II has all this gold coming in. And we then, after World War II, have the Bretton Woods convention. I'm not sure what it was exactly, but they say, hey, we've got all this gold now. We're going to make the dollar the central reserve currency, global reserve currency, excuse me. But it's all backed by all this gold that we have. So, hey, we're good. But in 1971, for reasons that you will have to explain, Nixon decided to take us off of the gold standard. So previously to that, if you had a dollar, you could actually go redeem it for gold.
Yes.
Now you couldn't, and it was fiat. It was by decree. I say that this dollar has value, and therefore it has value. The problem is that's married to something that happened at some point in the early 1900s that you will have to explain, the Beast from Jekyll Island, where we decided to create a central bank, which isn't owned by the government, right?
Correct.
Which I still can't believe is true. The Federal Reserve is not the federal government.
Federal, and it has no reserves.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, this is where I'm like, what? Language matters. Well played. That's a very good way to get me think that this is a government. All right. So we now break with the gold standard. And so we can literally print money. So as me, the ignorant guy that spent his whole life trying to make money, knows nothing about investing. I make the money. I think I am safe actually putting it under my bed, only to realize that there's actually somebody that has the ability to go Pernigo Burr, right? And they can press a button and it just makes more money. And therefore, with more money floating around, you've got more people competing to buy that loaf of bread or whatever. So the cost goes up, as one would naturally expect. And so now, even though I theoretically have my assets are going up and I have more money, but I either have the same buying power, so it's just an illusion, or I actually have less buying power and it's actually devastating. And so now we get into this crazy making loop of, it seems like I should be getting ahead, but I'm not getting ahead. I think of inflation as being a natural act, but really in the background are people making these decisions, and we will grant them that they are being kind. They're trying to do something nice. They're trying to level out volatility, if I had to guess, is actually their motivation. But they level out that volatility by creating debt cycles and devaluing the currency, which you are saying mechanistically, it just isn't different than theft. But when people think of redistribution of wealth as a good thing, is that just another crazy making thing? Or are people right to think that, no, this is good, we should be redistributing the wealth?
Well, that's a good long question. I would start with
a long question.
So let's do this. Wealth redistribution, first of all, no one ever thinks it's a good thing when they're the target. No one ever wants to be redistributed from. No one ever voluntarily gets redistributed from. That would be giving up value or wealth or capital for nothing in exchange. I don't say no one ever, but typically no one ever will enter that agreement, let's say. So maybe we'll track this arc. We'll do, what is gold? How did we get gold? Why and how central banking was introduced. And then we'll get into really what's happened post 1971. So, and I love this question, by the way, what is money, right? This is the name of the show. And this is I think the key to incepting these ideas into people, or at least getting people to question their socioeconomic reality such that they can peel back the layers of this onion and see through some of these euphemisms we've been given. And one definition of money, this is the Austrian economic definition, is that it's a universal medium of exchange. So again, capitalism is built on free exchange. It's built on voluntary action, right? Self-ownership, you go out into the world, create things of value, you trade them with other self-owned people. The result is we create more output per unit of input. We become more efficient acting in concert than we do acting in isolation. This is the division of labor. This is the reason wealth and riches exist, because we specialize and we trade with one another. In that process, something necessarily becomes most exchangeable or most tradable, right? By definition, if we're all trading with one another, there's going to be a single asset of that flurry of trading activity that is the most liquid asset, the most tradable or exchangeable asset. That is money. That's how money emerges in the marketplace. It is not a government creation, has nothing to do with government other than the fact that they monopolize it and try to control it to control people. And when you look at money from that first principle standpoint, and this is from the Austrian school, there's a deep, long literature on this, you'll see that money needs to exhibit 5 key properties. And this is an important point. We typically think that we want the thing, right? We want the table, we want the car, whatever. But we don't. We want the services the thing renders to us. So you could think almost in the world of economics, there are no such thing as goods, if you will. I know there are goods, I know there's tables, I know there's cars, but what we are after is what services those goods provide to us. So when we look at money, the 5 properties that market actors voluntarily favor, you could also think of as the 5 services we seek from money are divisibility, durability, recognizability, portability, scarcity. So I'll walk through each one of these. Money needs to be divisible. Pretty obvious. You want to transact at different scales. You want to buy coffee in the same day that you go and buy a house, right? So you'd like to be able to give someone a coin or send someone a wire for $10 million to buy a house. Pretty obvious. Money needs to be durable in that it's not going to corrode over time. If you put a bunch of gold in a safe, it's not going to decompose, right? The half-life on gold is way longer than matters to any of us. If you put a bunch of oranges in the safe and you were using that as money, that's going to rot pretty quickly. So clearly durability matters. Money needs to be recognizable, which means that each trading party can verify its authenticity. So at every transaction, and I'm handing you dollars, you can certify either with that little pin they mark on dollars to make sure it's a legitimate, U.S. Federal Reserve issued dollar, or if it was gold back in the day, they had different techniques for assaying the gold's authenticity, making sure it wasn't lead plated with gold. In fact, the name sound money, which you've probably heard in your explorations of the rabbit hole, that referred to the sound a gold coin made when dropped a certain way. So you could verify its authenticity by the sound it would create. And this is another reason we introduced coinage and currency, because to verify money at every transaction is a very significant transaction cost. Transaction costs are dissipative to trade, right? If we want to increase trade and increase wealth, we want to reduce transaction costs. So by abstracting into currency or putting it in a warehouse and trusting the warehouse custodian, we can now trade much more quickly and more efficiently. So that's one aspect of money that coinage and currency helped, was recognizability. Money also needs to be portable. Pretty obvious. You want to be able to move it across space, right? If I'm buying something in another city, I need to get my gold or dollars to the other city to give it to the recipient. Finally, and most importantly, money has to be scarce. And now we typically think scarce is purely a supply side function. That's not what scarcity means. Scarcity occurs when demand outstrips supply. So when there is more appetite for the thing than there is a supply of the thing. Okay, so oxygen, pretty important for human life. There's no price on it. Why?
Not scarce.
It's not scarce. The supply way outstrips the demand, right? Something like diamonds, not that important to human existence, yet has a huge price because the demand way outstrips the supply. The unique thing about scarcity and money is that money is always scarce because it's a call option on everything, all the capital, all the savings humans can produce. The heart of man is never satisfied. We always want more. Therefore, money is always scarce by definition. So what market actors tend to favor is the money that has the most inelastic supply. So this means the supply that is least subject to change by the willpower of others. That is what market actors will zero in on. And here, there's a number of ways to think about this. Time, energy, second law of thermodynamics. We cannot create nor destroy energy, right? We're sacrificing time and energy to earn money. You would naturally want the thing you're sacrificing this absolutely scarce time and energy for to be similarly absolutely scarce. That would be the ideal money, right? Something that can't be created or destroyed. With money, to gloss over a little bit of history, monetary metals, best satisfied, divisibility, durability, recognizability, portability. Those are just, and we've tried a lot of experiments. We've had seashells, we've had glass beads, we've had cattle, we've used all kinds of things as money, right? Natural market processes determined that monetary metals were the most satisfactory across the first 4 properties or services that money can render to us. Of the monetary metals, gold was the most scarce, meaning specifically its supply was the least vulnerable to change. No matter how much effort, time, energy we poured into producing gold, its supply increased the slowest and the most predictably. So this gave us a medium into which we could store economic value, and we would know with relative certainty that it would only change by about 2% year over year. So this gave gold the store value function we traditionally associate with it. That's great, right? Gold is great. Gold is good money. It's been good money, 5,000 years, served a lot of purposes. But the big hang up with gold is lack of portability, right? We talked about this a little bit earlier. You want to be able to move it across space, obviously, but gold's heavy. It's physical, right? It's very expensive to secure. It actually, in one way, it's beneficial in that you can store a lot of economic value in a small area and sort of amortize the security costs around it. But when you need to move it, that's when there's a lot of risk involved. And this was the impetus for introducing, what you alluded to earlier, were the warehousing businesses. So a private enterprise, a free market function came to be where a warehouse would take custody of the gold, give you the warehouse receipt, you can go and transact it. It's as good as gold, right? You have a call option on gold effectively. This was introduced to augment the portability of gold. Well, those warehouses became banks. Those banks became central banks. And this is all, again, I'm not laying out a nefarious scheme here. This is the economics, the economies of scale associated with gold. It is more efficient to centralize custody of this heavy, bulky metal and issue abstractions in it. It's more efficient to transact in that model than it is with physical gold. So that's what drives this process. The problem is you now have to trust the custodian. You've introduced what we call counterparty risk. There's a counterparty to that trade. I can trade this paper with everyone and it's as good as gold until I go to redeem the gold from the warehouse and the gold's not there, or they won't redeem it, or a fraction of what this paper represents is available. So that is kind of the history of gold into central banking. And I guess the history of central banking is quite interesting. I would say that, maybe this is an important point too, that people were all seeking something for nothing. I think this is kind of unavoidable. This is the entrepreneurial path, right? You've got a problem, you've got an itch, you want to scratch that itch or solve that problem with less effort, right? The really successful entrepreneur is almost brilliantly lazy, right? He's identifying a problem and finding the quicker way, a better way to solve it. When he makes that discovery, he can now sell that product or that service or that method, whatever it is, into the marketplace. And because everyone wants something for nothing, they will reward him, right? This is the entrepreneurial process. So that's great. We all want something for nothing, and it's a valid, noble pursuit. The problem, I think, is when we cross that line of self-ownership or of morality, and we start seeking something for nothing from others, right? Someone else has planted the garden, someone else has built the business, someone else has mined the gold. And instead of me performing the work to create that value or earn that value, I figured that I can just go out and co-opt or coerce or take that property or that asset from that person. That's a path for me to get something for nothing, but it's the immoral path, right? So I see this as kind of like the driving force in most human action. We're trying to get something for nothing, but there's a line that can be crossed. And we talked earlier about self-ownership. I think that's the line. When you violate the self-ownership of someone else, that's the problem. Central banking sort of came about as this natural institution to augment the technological limitations of gold. It wasn't portable, right? But when you put that much power, you concentrate that much power into one institution, it becomes noxious. It becomes corrupting. It becomes irresistible for some people of lower scruples anywhere in the world to seek that seat of power. And this is what I think has really started to deteriorate the monetary system. And if you look at the history of central banking, it's a lot of leveraging one another, right? You talked about a lot of the gold ending up in the United States. This was also pre-World War II. A lot of it has to do with the balance of payments among countries, which are just inflows and outflows of capital. But particularly when things got hot in Europe, a lot of gold started coming into the US. And again, with that much power or money in one place, we became the world superpower. And so we stepped onto the theater of war at the end of World War II, and we declared ourselves victorious, rightfully or wrongfully so. You can make your own judgments about that. And then we rewrote the rules of global banking to favor the United States, where the dollar is pegged to gold. All of the currencies are pegged to the dollar. So what this gave the United States is the infamous exorbitant privilege, as has been called, to be able to print money. We could send these paper certificates out into the world and have them send us goods and services in exchange. Ad infinitum, right? Until the system breaks down. Countries had the option to call our bluff, though. They could accept these dollars, but they could redeem them for gold if they thought we're being irresponsible with the monetary policy for printing too much money. Well, countries started calling our bluff after 1944. We had this huge economic boom. And then, again, glossing over some history, I think it was Germany that tried to repatriate some gold. So they tried to redeem dollars for gold. And then we had the infamous 1971 Nixon shock that said no more gold redemptions. And from that point on, and it was said to be a temporary measure, as governments so often and infamously say, who was it that said that there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government solution? Here we are exactly 50 years later in 2021, deep into this global fiat currency experiment led by the United States. And things have really come off the hinges. I point people on this topic to this website, WTF happened in 1971.com. This is not just economic, right? It's socioeconomic. There's, obesity rates have spiked, drug addiction, suicide, clearly indebtedness, right? When
you think this is tied to coming off the gold standard?
As the Austrians wrote a long time ago, the monetary standard and the moral standard are inexorably linked. And this gets back into property and time preference. When money's losing its value over time, we're all incentivized to be more short-term thinking. This is a de-civilizing force. And I think it is I don't want to say it's the sole cause for a lot of the cultural malaise we see in the world today, but I think it's a significant contributor.
Okay, that gets really complicated. So while very interesting, I think we push that down. There's a line that I've heard you say that I think is really important for people to understand, because I'm thinking of myself as I first started to grapple with this idea of inflation as theft, and I just couldn't make the words even. It seemed like such a non sequitur to me. And that is that there's no difference between I had a realization when I first got introduced to the stock market, I couldn't make it make sense until I was like, wait, this is like baseball cards, right? Unless it pays you a dividend. If it pays you a dividend, it's different because it's actually giving you cash. But if it doesn't, it is literally baseball cards. It only has the value that people agree that it has. And once they stop agreeing that it has that value, then it stops having that value in any real way. When I think about inflation, the following sentence that I heard you say makes all the sense in the world, which is that there is no difference between counterfeiting and inflating the amount of dollars in the system.
Absolutely.
It's just that one we say is fine because the Federal Reserve is doing it with the sort of implicit okay of the US government. And the other is a person in their basement,
That's right.
Doing it on the down low. But it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And then I heard you talk about there was a time where when Africa was being colonized, that I forget what region, but they used glass beads as a form of payment. And the people coming in were like, word, we've got glass manufacturing places, back home. We'll just make more of these beads.
Yeah.
And when you think about the things that money represents our time and our energy, right? You do something, you specialize, as you said. Your specialization creates something, and then somebody who doesn't want to specialize in that specializes in something else, gives you money, it's a call on that good or service, and you give them that thing. So if you can just go make these glass beads back home and bring, ships full of them, you can slowly milk the efforts of the people that you're counterfeiting their money. And when I heard it said, and again, I also don't think that I choose to look at this with no negative viewpoint, that they're not doing anything negative on purpose, that this is all good intentions, just potentially gone awry. But when I heard it explained how you would do it if you were nefarious, I was like, oh my God, because you suddenly understand that there's this extreme of I'm either getting you to do this for free or because if nobody ever realizes that the glass beads are fake, then you just have inflation. All
right? Staticky a little bit.
You give me that thing in exchange for glass beads, so the next person goes, but these are counterfeit, then you really lost.
That's right.
But if I'm just slowly devaluing it, because
Sorry, we're gonna restart that. That's weird.
Extractive nature of I'm either getting you to do this for free
That's
or
fine. Maybe that's just on mine.
Nobody ever realizes that the glass beads are fake.
I was like, if it's bugging me, it's got to be bugging you guys. But never mind.
You give me that thing in exchange for glass beads, and the next person goes, but these are counterfeit, then you really lost.
That's right.
But if I'm just slowly devaluing it because the prices are going up because wow, there's just so many glass beads
10,
everywhere.
15 minutes just in time for 6.
Which first would feel like an embarrassment of riches, and then suddenly you'd realize, wait, everything is just re-normalized, and either I can afford the same thing or again I can afford less. Then I was like, oh my God, now I understand how inflation is theft. And then you really do get into, I think it was Andrew Jackson punching a banker in the face. You have to understand what happened on Jekyll Island. So it's like, before we get to the sort of morality side of all this, which is fucking fascinating, and I really hope that we don't run out of time before we get to it, I want to understand Jekyll Island. Why would Andrew Jackson punch a central banker in the face? Like, because I grew up in this system, it seems natural.
Yeah.
But there was a time where this was like governments, even by government agencies or government actors, were like met with such suspicion. And the founding fathers and how they were like, yo, you have to be so careful of governmental overreach. It's like, we don't have.
This is bam.
Wrote about this debacle in 16th.
Let's figure it out. Can you hear me at least? Can you hear me? Did I just fucking yell into the mic? Okay, cool. That's weird. Huh. Must have just been me closing, reopening the window. So let me just remove that feed. And I'll just hit that little share. I've noticed this with StreamYard. I think I mentioned it previously.
Century Western Africa, where they were using glass beads as money. And I think this...
Never mind. That was actually my bad. My bad. I was trying to get a louder sound to the kitchen rather than what's here, but I won't do that. Sorry. You guys don't hear anything?
Or we can violate the
What about
property of one
now?
another and fight over it. And this gets to that old Bastiat saying
Are we
that
back?
when goods and services don't cross borders, soldiers will. Right? We're all seeking something for nothing. If we don't channel that human action into the
Oh, now it's good. All right. Let me know if I
productive
broke it.
channels of trade and entrepreneurship, then we end up over here in violence, coercion, and compulsion.
All right.
Okay, so
Got a little bit more.
You've got Andrew Jackson
The
trying
screen just
to
has
root
these
out the
things moving like it's
vipers.
charging. So
I'm
doesn't
assuming
really give me a meter,
he thought of them as vipers
So I'll catch him
because
like 8
they
minutes
can redistribute wealth, which is a violation of your property.
That's right.
Why then do we end up creating the central bank, and why did they meet in secret? Like, what? Give us a little bit of background on that meeting on Jekyll Island. I know they were pretending that they were going on a hunting trip, and it's such a weird confluence of things that are happening right now. You have this sense of like distrust of people are working behind the scenes against you, but you also have this sense of redistribution of wealth is good. Like it's a very confusing time right now.
And this is still confusing to this day. People will argue with you that this, the Fed was set up with very good intentions, and that this whole, which by the way, this book, The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, this was formative to my understanding of central banking. And this was pre-Bitcoin that I got into this. So I would really just encourage the audience to go check out that book. It's a big book though. You can also read an abridged version called Dishonest Money, I think was the one that I gave to my family and friends. And it sort of encapsulates the gist of it. But to your question, I think, based on my study of that book, that it was done in secret and it was done over a holiday weekend because this was a time when people still understood the ideological importance of life, liberty, and property. We'd learned a lot of lessons from central banking and its failure and its tyranny in England and even before that. So it was still fresh enough on the human mind that we were resistant to its implementation. But as far as why it got pushed, again, it's this something for nothing principle, right? If you could found an institution or a business, and by the way, all organizations are businesses, right? Governments are businesses, institutions are businesses. They're all property strategies, as I call them. If you could establish an institution that could generate perpetual profits and be able to paper over its own losses, right? It can never sustain a loss. Would you not have a pretty large incentive to establish that organization? I mean, the equivalent question is if you could magically wish for a money printing machine right here on your table, like, wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you, once you had it, wouldn't you run that machine until it was absolutely blowing smoke and sparks out the side of it? I mean, that's central banking in a nutshell. Is it human beings in this pursuit of something for nothing, or in this pursuit of wealth, frankly, right? The most powerful incentive in the world. We have tried to rationalize and formulate different ways of creating socioeconomic structures that favored the few that could understand it and create that privilege for themselves at the expense of others.
All right, I think this is where Bitcoin needs to enter stage left here. So I have a quote from you. Actually, I'm going to start with a paraphrase from Alan Greenspan. This is you paraphrasing Alan Greenspan. That sets us up then for your quote. So Alan Greenspan, again, this is a paraphrase. A sound store of value must be made illegal. Otherwise, fiat currency would not be competitive. So you've got this idea of, so a sound store of money, you talked about, you drop that coin, but basically that it's, the amount of it is fixed.
Inflexible supply.
Okay,
Yeah.
So that's sound. Now, this is your quote, which I love, and I think sets us up for understanding why the Bitcoin guy who has Bitcoin tattooed on the inside of his arm, like the most painful place to get a tattoo, says this. This entire system we've built is a complex of unintended consequences, and Bitcoin is an immune response from the collective economy. So if we buy into the idea that they didn't have bad intentions to create the central bank, they don't have bad intentions to make the printer go burr, they just like they're trying to policy their way to something that's far more stable, which I actually get. And when I put like my they don't have bad intentions hat on, I'm like, word, like I get what they're trying to do. Yeah. And I'm grateful that I've grown up in a super stable environment where I was able to go from, sort of lower middle class to generating real wealth in my life. So for me, it worked, right? I was able to jump class, like all of the things that I was promised with the American dream, I was actually able to do. And so I'm like, yo, that stability is amazing. I didn't ever have to use weapons to build my company, which is a whole side thing that I've talked about before, where I had former drug dealers working for me. Long story. There's a whole reason why I think it's amazing to give people a second chance. So anyway, they were telling me stories of like people trying to confiscate their product, right? Which for me would have been protein bars. So it was like, whoa, the thought of somebody showing up with shotguns to take my protein was like, that's crazy. That's a hard way to do business. Yeah, right. So it's like, okay, this has all worked for me. I like this stability. So when I have that hat on, I'm like, I get what they're at least trying to do. But when you try to engineer a system, whoa, like the number of things that go wrong where you can change, whether it's ecological and you're trying to do something and it has, 10 different knock-on effects, or whether it's with money and it has different knock-on effects. Why though is Bitcoin the immune response?
Yes. It's funny you read that line. I don't barely remember
you
writing
said,
that.
Well, I heard you say it. So whether you've read it or written it or not, I can't say. But in a podcast, you said.
So these principles that the United States was founded upon, again, that have been refined from the past, from like the Magna Carta. One of the most important, if not the most important, is that principle of inviolable property. Meaning, again, property as the relationship between yourself and the value you create or the fruits of your labor, which is the foundation or the scaffolding that lets you climb the socioeconomic hierarchy, right? From, as you said, lower middle class to where you are today, was because you knew that you could hold the value of the value you created and use it to scaffold yourself upward. If that foundation were not stable, right, at least to some extent, there would be no way for you to have upward mobility. So again, we're back to property rights being the basis of civilization itself. They're pretty good here. They're pretty good in the US. You can open a bank account. You can put dollars in it. Your property rights will be violated by inflation. When the Federal Reserve is printing money, you're going to now need to outpace inflation with some other investment. Otherwise, your property will be diluted. You don't have full property in that money, because if you try and wire it to, I don't know what countries are on the OFAC list today, Iran or something, they'll block you and say, no, you can't do it. So you don't have full rights in that property. You are being surveyed. You don't have full privacy, but you have pretty good property rights, right, relative to the rest of the world. Bitcoin is the first permanent implementation of this principle we've been refining throughout human history of inviolable property. It actually cannot be violated in any way. No one can produce more than 21 million Bitcoin. So and I've argued this in some of my writing, that although it's an invention, we've actually discovered something with Bitcoin. We've discovered absolute scarcity for money. So if we're back to those 5 properties of money, in terms of scarcity, Bitcoin is absolute. It's not relative, right? It doesn't change. We know with, nothing's, people argue with me about this. It's not absolute. Everything's probabilistic. True. Bitcoin has proven itself over 13 years of flawless operation that it does 2 things essentially perfectly, which are churn out a block on 1 block of transactions on average every 10 minutes and adhere to a supply cap of 21 million. So it's the first fixed supply money there has ever been. And I don't think you can recreate that because by definition, money is a centripetal network effect. So we tend towards one. So for the same reasons we had one analog gold, we're likely only to have one digital gold. So your property rights cannot be violated by inflation because no one can change the supply cap. If you hold 1,000 Bitcoin, you hold 1,000 of a possible 21 million forever, right? You have a guaranteed fraction of the total money supply. You cannot get that level of assurance with any other asset in the world. Full stop. Doesn't exist. Even with gold, you can hold all the physical gold you want. You're still not immune to some technological breakthrough. We figured out how to produce gold in the lab very cheaply. We mine an asteroid, we mine the ocean floor, we find a new South American bonanza, whatever. You're not immune to any of that. But with Bitcoin, and again, it's a bit of a bet because it's only 13 years in, but it's done these things perfectly so far. If it continues to do what it's been doing for 13 years, you have a guaranteed fraction of total money supply. So you have
I didn't want to interrupt that because that was a very good segment. I should probably restart that. So I can finally see on the top right corner, the battery is actually not just an outline. It's about halfway, but it does still say low battery and it's not letting me power this thing on. So we can either pivot to another device, but chances are they're not going to be charged either. So, I'll give it another hour. For anybody who wants to stick around, I'll fucking play this. This episode conveniently has another hour on Tom Bilyeu. So I think to be safe, that'll give this a full charge. And then we can proceed with the setup and giveaway. Yeah, my bad. I wasn't planning for this. Did not expect this. Usually with these manufacturers, their QC process provides enough battery life to use it a couple times. With other tech devices, you know what I mean? Yeah, so we'll go back to intermission. And I'll be here chatting, hop in the Discord, come say what's up. I'll update all the social feeds. Yeah, thank you very much. Me too. That's why I'm like, is this a lemon? I don't think so. Because usually you can power on a device with half a battery. I'm going to play the video again. I'll play with it a little bit, see if I can get powered on. But that's all we could really do unless we just push this back to another day. But I'd rather fulfill the giveaway. And I do want to finish watching this episode, so let's do it.
Inviolable property right. Further, this is, again, property is the relationship, right? We've historically always needed an enforcer. So you need the police force, you need the military to make sure no one comes into your house and violates your relationship with your house. We needed, if maybe not necessarily a monopoly on violence, but you needed a protection producing enterprise, which historically is the role of government, to enshrine your property rights. The problem, of course, is that they wield the power to violate your property rights as well, which historically has been very tempting for governments and bureaucrats. They typically give into it, and governments get overthrown over time. That's been the cycle we're locked into. Bitcoin's the first property right independent of the monopoly on violence, or independent of physical protection production. It's an informational property right. It's just an alphanumeric string. You can store it in any information bearing medium. Put it in your mind, put it on your computer, put it in a song, do whatever you want with it. And the enforcement is done by the mining network. So the algorithm and the free market competition that's going into Bitcoin mining is effectively displacing the protection that government was historically necessary to provide in Bitcoin itself. So it's this radical new, some people have called it a metaphysical property right, and that it's just an information bearer asset. So gold was really good as a bearer asset, and that, assets equal liabilities plus equity, the accounting equation. Gold was pure equity. if I hold gold, it's no one else's liability. That's really important, right? I have no counterparty risk if I hold physical gold. If I hold dollars, that's not true, right? I have this liability to the Federal Reserve, to the bank, whoever, whatever counterparties are involved. Bitcoin's the same as physical gold, but it's non-physical, right? It's informational. So it opens up this entire new sphere of possibilities in how you custody it. You can custody Bitcoin in these multi-signature schemas that are all but immune to theft. You can chop the key into a bunch of pieces and distribute it geographically. You have these military grade protocols wrapped around it. And it gives you an absolute, it is the highest implementation of human self-ownership we've ever had. Right? In the past, it's been scribbles on the American Constitution or the Magna Carta, and like, we'll always adhere to this document no matter what. But then, a few hundred years go by, and we're like, well, let's tweak this or change that or add this. Bitcoin's taken those principles we've used with foundational documents historically, and it's permanently emblazoned them in computer code, in unbreakable code, basically. Is another way to think about it. So it's the invention of inviolable property, right? It's no longer a principle. We've grabbed this principle out of the space of ideas and we've anchored it into reality via the thermodynamic competition of Bitcoin mining. And it is so radically new and hard to get your head around that it's shattering worldviews worldwide.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this episode. I have some important news to announce. Actually, this is the biggest news in the history of Impact Theory. We are launching a very special NFT, what we're calling the Impact Theory Founders Key. If you don't know what that means, that's okay. You can learn all about it by joining our Discord community.
Let's fucking go!
You get access to an amazing community and all kinds of valuable information, like the beginner's guide to crypto and NFTs. My friends, the internet changed the world in just a decade. Social media changed the world in a few short years, and NFTs are going to change the world possibly even faster. If you enjoy watching Impact Theory, you're going to love our Discord community and all the things that I've put together for you. And I really do not want you to miss out on the revolution. It doesn't have to be with us, but make sure that you get involved. If you want to get involved with us, click the link or go to impacttheory.com/Discord and get started today.
Nano S because
it really is difficult to wrap your head around. The part that starts to be a little unnerving for me is, all right, if the government has coming to existence to solidify the will of the people, to protect you, to protect property, but then over time it begins to involve itself in that property, and you're in a fiat position now where part of how they get the control is through money. And now you have the first true sound money, and it has the inelastic properties that make it, the soundest money of all time. The question that I had for Michael Saylor that he answers very differently than you is, aren't the governments going to get really upset about this, that their only real option would be to either mimic it, in which case now I have that counterparty risk because it's a government that created it, versus this sort of mythical creator that poof has disappeared, and other than whatever units he or she or they have is not trying to engage in the system in any way, shape, or form, couldn't change it even if they wanted to. How do we avoid the government coming down with an iron fist and saying, yeah, this is illegal now?
Yeah, I do view this a little differently than Saylor, who's absolutely brilliant. I think his position in general is that they'll exist side by side, fiat currencies and Bitcoin. And I tend to agree in the medium term, and I think that's happening today. Bitcoin's an almost $1 trillion asset. It exists side by side with countless or hundreds of fiat currencies, let's say. However, in the long run, I think Bitcoin, and again, we're back to that the difficulty in understanding it is because it is so far outside our worldview, right? The idea of gold being disrupted. Gold is almost the only game that humans have ever played in a way. It's foundational to all of our institutions. It's a 5,000-year-old technology that's so old, we forgot what made it valuable. Everyone knows it's valuable. How many people can tell you the 5 properties of money and why gold was selected? The idea that that's being disrupted by this 13-year-old digital upstart is pretty wild. But I think that Bitcoin is an innovation as significant as the Gutenberg printing press, actually. And I think the implications of its emergence will be similarly disruptive to institutions in the world. This is late in the 15th century, I believe, when the printing press was invented. The 500 years prior to that, there had been roughly 10 million books printed. All of a sudden, this super cheap and efficient way of reproducing books is invented, the Gutenberg printing press, which was a composite of other inventions, by the way. It wasn't really a breakthrough in itself. It was one guy or guys put together 4 or 5 different other inventions and made this thing work. Similar to Bitcoin, actually. That's what Satoshi did. He pulled together things that already existed, but just put them together in a radically new package that we call Bitcoin.
Magic internet money.
10 years after the invention of the printing press, 10 million books were produced. So the amount of books produced in 10 years equaled the amount produced in the 500 years prior. What did this do? This led to the rapid proliferation and dissemination of literacy, numeracy, again, psychotechnologies, right? These modes of systemizing our cognition that actually increase our ability to cooperate absent or independent of institutions of the day, which the dominant institution of the day was the church. They owned a monopoly on knowledge effectively via the scriptoria, which is where, or scriptorium, I may be saying that wrong.
You can make it up. I have no fucking idea. I've never heard that word before in my life.
They used to have monks copying books by hand, right? So to produce one book took a lot of labor. Books were a luxury item. But all of a sudden, due to this innovation called the printing press, the cost of book production plummeted. Books become much more widely dispersed. And the church at first didn't realize this existential threat. Once it did, it actually tried to clamp down on the printing press, which created an interesting dynamic that we actually started producing books on how to produce the printing press. So it saw that this is a good allegory, I think, that when the institution tries to clamp down on the disruptive technology, the subversive technology, let's say, it actually drives it to its highest and most useful form of subversion, actually. So the result of that was a lot more thinkers, a lot higher quality of thinking, variety of thinking, and in general, it created a market for heresy. Right. This led to Martin Luther penning that, like, why do we need you? Individuals can now have this independent relationship with the word of God because they've developed literacy and whatnot. They don't need to go through this middleman of the church. And the printing press effectively led to the dissolution of the church as the dominant institution in the world. So we had separation of church and state and all the benefits that created in the aftermath. I think encryption technology, and this is deriving a lot of this from the book, The Sovereign Individual, which I've recommended highly, is similar. That it actually disrupts functions of the government that we needed the government previously for. We can now provide with code, Bitcoin being an obvious one, right? We needed the physical enforcer for property historically. Now for money, the most important property, you don't need that enforcer anymore. So I think that Bitcoin, its emergence will actually lead to the dissolution of the nation state as the dominant organizational model for human beings.
Every time I hear you say that, and I may regret saying this out loud, but every time I hear you say that, I'm like, shh, shh, shh. Like and look, I know that also would be its own form of social engineering to hey, don't tip off the government, let this happen, give it more breathing room. Yeah. And so there would be unintended consequences there. But it's like, man, so I'm going to give you my layperson's view on Bitcoin and why I become so, and admittedly, I'm not a maximalist. So for me, this is looking more broadly at like cryptocurrency and the digitization of value, which is how I see this. So my thesis is technology is a one-way street. We will find anything that can be turned into code will be turned into code for reasons such as that you can create absolute scarcity. You can now have a blockchain that will track ownership, so everybody knows exactly what's going on. There's a transparency to the ledger that we don't have to be slaves to as many laws of physics. You're still going to be tied to energy production, but once we are spending, once you can tap into the basically your nervous system, and you can get me to feel like I'm flying, where it is indistinguishable from me actually flying, then all bets are off. And I think given the human desire to pull the levels of our neurochemistry, we will just end up going down that route. So it just makes sense to me that things will be digitized, that money will be digitized, that anything, again, like I said, anything that we can, for sure. It's more efficient. It's more exciting. It's more interesting. It just seems like an inevitable sort of one-way street. And so I'm like, ooh, when I heard about this, and finally went down the rabbit hole of learning what it actually is and why it works, I was like, oh, okay, I totally get this. And for me, the priming mechanism was NFTs, because I knew that would make sense for my business. All of that sort of irrelevant. But it took me down the path of learning what this is. And so now I'm like, whoa. Not the first time, we're all living through a moment right now where, for the first time, we as just normal individuals are front running the institutions. And so I became obsessed with just getting people to look at it, because I can't see the future, nor can you, nor can anybody. So I don't know what's going to work out. It could end up being a disaster. So I don't want people to just do what I say. I want them to go learn what this is, because I think it is incredibly important for all human beings to be able to think from first principles, meaning you know how things work. Don't just think about things, think about the nature of things. And when you understand the nature of things, you can solve novel problems, a problem nobody's seen before. Nobody can give you a book. There is no way for me to sort of pre-masticate the idea for you. But now you have the information, like with literacy, where you can go on this discovery mechanism, and if you should lead to the same conclusion that I have come to, which is that, oh my God, this moment of panic I had where, so understand, dude, this to me is funny. And I really believe that the purpose and meaning that I'm finding in life is I've had to learn everything the hard way. I'm not particularly bright, and I can't think fast, but I can think really fucking deeply about something. And so because I have to learn things the hard way with sort of normal hardware, right? I don't have a genius like that, but then I can sort of explain, after I've really spent some time with it, I can explain it, is I had this moment of panic where, as this guy who managed to create tremendous wealth in his life by spending 2 decades getting good at business, right? It took me for fucking ever. I did not have natural instincts in entrepreneurship, but I figured it out. And so then have created wealth in my life. But now I'm still ignorant to investing. So I've created like fucking crazy money where people be like, what? But I don't know how to invest it. And so I get involved in the world of investing, and I'm telling my money manager, just don't fucking take risks. All right. Like keep this shit as just keep me at the amount of money that I have, the buying power. That's all I'm looking for. I'm not trying to Warren Buffett this shit. I don't need to die as the richest person on earth. None of that matters to me. But they keep like haranguing me. Tom, you can't just do that. And I'm like, why? And no one could explain it to me. And the confused mind says no. So they would try to explain mechanisms, calls, puts, options, that, every 7 years I could double my money, all that. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about that. I've already made the money. I just want to protect my money now. And then I discover NFTs, and then I discover fucking Michael Saylor. And he goes into inflation and like what it means and how it breaks down your buying power. And I thought, oh my God, I have to then keep making money. And I don't want to have to keep making money. So then I'm like, God damn it. And so I'm looking at inflation and I'm saying, here's one thing I find really fucking distressing. No one can agree on what's happening. So I'm like, then it's not super obvious. You've got Michael Saylor, who's like, Tom, you're going to be broke in 62 days. And then you've got, other people that are like, come on, like it's, we're only around 2%. Like this is all madness. And then you've got people that are in between. And then I find you, and you actually explain what inflation is. And now I'm at first principles. Now I understand it. Now I know what's happening. Now I'm really freaked out. So now my moral obligation goes to 100, but I'm like, Breedlove, will you shut the fuck up? You're going to like get the government, like they're going to freak the fuck out and they're going to clamp down on this shit. Yeah. And now I'm legitimately like, whoa, what do we do? Because my hope is that you're right about the thing and you're wrong about either the speed or the amplitude. Meaning you're probably right that on a long enough timeline, government takes on a new shape, but it happens over 5 or 6 generations. It doesn't happen in 20 years, which that would be literally bloody and terrifying. But if it happens over 100 years, then I can see it where it just changes the dynamic between us as sovereign individuals and the government. Because quite frankly, I don't think most people want sovereignty. Not 100% sovereignty. Yeah. And I'll explain it through Bitcoin. I know I'm supposed to put it on my cold storage device and put my cold storage device somewhere very safe. But I kind of prefer it on an exchange because I want them to deal with like the security and all of that, because I'm sure as hell not storing it in my house because I don't want to incentivize somebody to break in. So now I've got counterparty risk of like, I'm storing it at a bank. Like, where am I putting this fucking thing? So I realized, whoa, like I trust myself a lot, relatively bright, very hardworking. Like, hey, if anybody can figure it out, I can figure it out. And I still want somebody else to deal with it.
Yeah, and that's analogous to wanting a government to be the one to come in and protect my home. I don't want to need a gun. You know what I mean? Shit like that. I want a government to deal with some of these things. Yeah. And again, as a means of either a cognitive expedient or outsourcing security, like that's natural. We want that. And I should make the important point. It's not black or white. It's not like banks or Bitcoin. You actually have Bitcoin banks. They already exist. NYDIG and all these other guys, they're just taking custody of Bitcoin now, giving you traditional banking services, but on a Bitcoin standard. The other aspect is you don't have one pot of Bitcoin. You can put a little with this bank, that bank, this bank. You can spread out your counterparty risk, keep some in self-custody. I mentioned multi-signature earlier. That might be a little bit beyond the scope of this conversation, but you can actually get redundancy plus self-sovereignty. So you could trust yourself, but not make your house a target by using a multi-signature setup, which I think is the most useful schema for custodying your Bitcoin, because you get, again, redundancy. You don't have single point of failure, but you also don't have counterparty risk. And
that's going out to like my friends or my family and saying, hey, you 5 or 6 people, you also have to sign for this to be moved. And one of you hopefully goes, did Tom really want this? Right? That's what multi-sig is?
Correct. Yeah. You're selecting your circle of trust, basically, and structuring it in a way that a majority would not collude against you. Right?
Yeah, and that they don't probably even know who each other are.
Exactly. And there's a whole lot of game theoretic considerations to that, but it can be done, is the point. And Bitcoin enables this. You can't do that with any other asset. So that's radically new. To your point about Breedlove, shut the fuck up. You're not the only one to say that, actually. People have a bit of reticence about maybe discussing the geopolitical implications of Bitcoin. But the way that I look at it is that these conversations are going to be had. It's just a matter of, are they being had behind closed doors, favoring those in the room, or are these conversations we're going to have out in the open, such that it does not produce such an asymmetric outcome? So maybe I'm wrong. I could be persuaded one way or the other. And I've had a lot of smart people give me really good criticism about it. But it seems to me that in the digital age, in the ethos of openness and transparency that we discuss what we've done here. What world have we created for ourselves? How does this radical new asset or form of property change the game? And what are the geopolitical implications? What does this do in the broader span of human history to the institutions we've come to depend on? I think it's a fruitful conversation to be had out in the sunlight. I do think, though, that it could be, we're very maybe indoctrinated to some extent that transitions have to be bloody, they have to be violent, and what have you. But again, a lot of this is rooted in the violability of property. Again, the book The Sovereign Individual goes into the logic of violence and how this has changed human behavior and human institutions over time. One simple example here would be the knight on horseback used to be the dominant force in the land because this guy could afford a war horse, afford a suit of armor and a lance. The stirrup actually was very pivotal innovation, because before the stirrup, the armored knight was too heavy to get on horseback, so he didn't have mobility to be the force on the land. So the stirrup, the seemingly simple invention, changed the logic of violence that allowed the knight to become dominant.
That shit is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Things like that, and
Yeah.
how, like, what a big knock-on effect they have.
Yes.
Utterly fascinating.
So then that was this, had implications on the feudal age and the knight, the moral code of chivalry. All these things emerged from this kind of simple innovation that made the knight the dominant force. But then what happened? We invented gunpowder. So one knight that could take on 50 peasants in armed combat, all of a sudden, one peasant at 200 yards can take out a knight. So it all changes again, right? Chivalry collapses, all these things. So when we change the logic of violence, which means, the economic returns of violence or coercion or the cost of defense, the way we organize ourselves changes. And so you could think of Bitcoin as this new technology that so radically increases the cost to benefit ratio of violence, and that if someone's properly custodied it, again, in a multi-signature format or whatever, there's not any carrot at the end of robbing them. You're not going to get anything, right? You can go and in Bitcoin circles, they call this the $5 wrench attack, because you buy the wrench for $5 and you beat the guy over the head with a wrench until he gives up his Bitcoin. But if he's custodied it properly, there's no incentive even to conduct the $5 wrench attack. So in this gigantic geopolitical upheaval that I anticipate occurring due to the monetization of Bitcoin, I think it could be very uncertain at first. Governments are going to use their power in certain ways that could be unfavorable, let's say. But over time, as Bitcoin continues to monetize and more people are holding their wealth in this inviolable property, I would tend to believe that the incentives towards peaceful cooperation would begin to outweigh the incentives to coercion. So although it could be a bit rocky in the beginning, I think the long-term outcome is way more fruitful for humans. Something you said earlier too, that maybe people don't want sovereignty.
Full sovereignty.
I think incentives are the fertile soil from which our humanity springs, actually. All right. So we think, is maybe a bit egotistical, that we think that however we are, this is the way humans are, and it's the way they've always been. But again, that's totally not true, right? Pre-printing press, most of us were illiterate. We didn't have, our cognitive software was completely unrecognizable to what we are today. No one could sit here and have a conversation like this, much less with all these amazing tools we've created in the marketplace since then. So I think that by changing the fundamental soil, which are the incentives, again, like the logic of violence and all these other things, that we actually change our character traits and behaviors. I've said that, and to try and draw commonality here, I said organizations and institutions are all property strategies. I think that even DNA itself is kind of a survival strategy or property strategy over time, right? We're all organisms geared towards reproduction. Reproduction necessitates territory. We need to take territory. Humans express territory in property, right? That's how we share and build, declare property and create more wealth, actually, by trading through property rights. So I think that our strategies ultimately conform to the invariance on the game board, if you will. And Saylor talks about one of these is gravity, right? Like gravity is the one invariant that all of these strategies, whether you're a human being, whether you're a building, whether you're a government, like you're adapting your strategy to gravity. It's an invariant, right? You can't, if you changed gravity, it would destroy all the humans and buildings and all the things. You can kind of consider Bitcoin, maybe I'm out on a limb here, but I think 21 million, this fixed supply asset, as the emergence of a new, seemingly perfected invariant in the market for money. So it forces all of us to change our strategies to adopt this invariant in the space. So this is at the individual level, the institutional level, and at the nation state level. Sounds a bit radical, but I think that if you come to see, DNA as a survival strategy propagating through blood, flesh, and bone, and that all the other creations we make are just, in biology, they call this the extended phenotype. We have the genotype, which is the genetic code, the strategy itself. We implement it in the phenotype, the body, the teeth, the eyes. We have the extended phenotype, which are our tools and technologies, or even our institutions. That it's all a strategy. And that those strategies will adopt themselves to the invariants that we create for ourselves. I think Bitcoin is just the perfect invariant money.
Very interesting. Okay, now when I think about the properties of this invariant money, one of them is that there's only ever going to be 21 million. And now it makes money feel like a zero-sum game to me, which maybe out of ignorance. I always felt like my getting wealthy did not take from anybody. I created something they wanted. I gave it to them at a fair price. And that worked out to my advantage in that they got what they wanted in that momentary exchange, but I was able to build value in something that somebody else wanted from me. And so I could sell that to them. And now where money is, let's say, in a world where Bitcoin becomes essentially gold, it becomes the place where people store their value. There's only 21 million. And so now if I'm Jeff Bezos and I have some just insane portion of that and don't have even really a mechanism to intelligently spend it all. And this is where we probably have to get to. People think that Jeff Bezos has all that money sitting in a bank. And of course he does not. He would have to sell portions of his company to get that. So does that notion of equities like go away?
No.
Like what does that look like?
Yeah,
it's
so
really interesting.
Stock markets will continue to exist. But I think where maybe your confusion here is, again, purchasing power versus the supply of money. So the purchasing power of money will continue to increase the more wealth we create through free exchange. So although there's only 21 million Bitcoin, it sounds like, this absolutely scarce number. The amount of purchasing power it can contain is unlimited, right? You can have an unlimited.
It's not unlimited, right? There is a cap. Like there can only be so many Satoshis per Bitcoin, or is that not true?
Well, you can actually soft fork Bitcoin and divide it further. So to your point, each Bitcoin, and a lot of people don't know this, so this is probably important. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. Each Bitcoin is divisible into 100 million subunits called Satoshis. If ever that divisibility were inadequate, we're back to that property of money, divisibility. If that were inadequate liquidity to support economic activity, right? If Bitcoin were global money and one Satoshi were worth, I don't know, a car or something, you can soft fork the code, which is to say it's a simple software update, let's put it that way, to increase the divisibility of Bitcoin. So
that's built into the code.
That's built into the code. So Bitcoin is essentially, and that's one of the reasons it's better than gold, infinitely divisible. Right. It's
so only 21 million units, but you can infinitely divide it. Now, does that have the effect of printing more money?
No. And this is another commonly misunderstood thing. People think that if you can increase the divisibility of it, then all of a sudden you're back into inflation, right? But the problem with inflation is the distributive effects of inflation. It's that this group is producing new money for themselves and you're not. When you just increase the divisibility of the money, it's it's like a
Everyone
stock
is treated
split.
equally.
Stock split, right? You had one share of stock, now everyone has 10. No one was diluted. Everyone was just increased the divisibility of their stock. That's essentially what this soft fork would be to Bitcoin divisibility. Now, this point, this is very important because people get this confused. The more productive we become as a global economy, the more purchasing power Bitcoin can contain. And that is unlimited. That is limited only by the amount of capital we can produce. Money as a
Well, you're going to have to define that then, because if capital isn't money, what is it? Because
money is a form of capital, but let me distinguish this. Non-money capital. Let's say all the other things, right? The buildings, the stuff, the cars, the factories, the equipment, all of the productive factors in an economy, non-monetary productive factors, which I'm saying loosely is capital here, say non-money capital. Money's a call option on all that, right? It's denominating the value of all these assets that are trading back and forth. But there's also this reservation demand for money. People are just holding money as a call option on all that stuff. So another definition of money, it's an insurance policy on uncertainty. The only reason people are holding money is for its option value. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Therefore, what's the answer to uncertainty? Optionality. If I have no idea what's going to happen, I want the maximum number of options to deal with all possible contingencies. That's what money is. It's another thing money is. So if you think of money, sorry, I'm talking with my hands here, fixed supply Bitcoin over here, not changing, right? 21 million, but this capital stock, non-monetary capital growing as we trade and produce more and more, this would imply the purchasing power per Bitcoin is growing, right? It's a call option on more and more stuff. This amount of stuff is limited by us. How much can we innovate? How much can we create? But there's no limitation on Bitcoin itself. And to the point of a Bezos or any individual actor holding an outsized portion of the money supply, that's capitalism. What we have removed, though, is the ability for Bezos, because he has such a large position in the money supply, to change the rules of the monetary network. Right? And that's what the Fed has effectively done. It's like, we hold all the gold. We're going to make the rules. Bretton Woods, 1944. We're going to award ourselves this perpetual free lunch on the productive economy for the right of monopolizing money, which sounds asinine because it is. That's not possible on a Bitcoin standard. So the fixity of rules, the unchangeableness or immutability of rules is the bedrock of peaceful and productive cooperation. And you know this, if you sat down at a table to play poker, and if the hand rankings changed every few hands and one guy was deciding, I mean, he would clean everyone out and that would be that. And you would never want to play the game again, right? You would want to go and find another game to play. Poker works as a game because the rules don't change. We can formulate strategies and compete with one another in a productive way. But if you want to drive people insane and really create a lot of conflict, just try changing the rules of the game every few hands. And this applies to any game, especially money. That's what inflation's doing, right? Nobody knows the rules of the US dollar. How many are in circulation? How many will be in circulation? Who's profiting? We don't even know exactly who the shareholders of the Fed are. What's their dividend? What are their criteria for deciding how many dollars to produce? Who's getting it first? Who's going to be the Fed chair next year? Like there's all of this uncertainty injected into managing the asset that's intended to be an insurance policy against uncertainty, that it's just oxymoronic in a way. And so Bitcoin is another way to look at it, is the most certain form of money we've ever had. And if money is an insurance policy for dealing with uncertainty, you would want maximal credibility in the properties of money to deal with that uncertainty. And that is Bitcoin. And that's why it's like people think you can ignore it or avoid it, or I don't want to hear about it. But it's like, if you prefer wealth to poverty, and if you depend on the marketplace for wealth, which is the only generator of wealth, then you have to pay attention to Bitcoin because it's monetizing.
Okay. Now to go a layer
I hope that
even
answered
deeper.
the difference between purchasing power and
Yeah,
supply.
yeah. In fact, let me restate it, because as you were saying it, you were fucking melting my brain. So it's one of those that's so self-evident that once you hear it, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I couldn't come to that on my own. But so basically, it's everything that we create has some value.
Mhm.
The way that we denominate value of all kinds is with money. So whether that's energy, water, air if you're on Mars, which was a joke I wasn't able to make when you said it the first time because I didn't want to interrupt you. Give them Meakohagen. All of that stuff is denominated in whatever the monetary system is. So in this case, dollars or Bitcoin. So it's an umbrella that by its nature encompasses all things. So as you produce more things, then it grows to encompass that you could buy all of those things, that everything has value that can be traded for that.
Yeah, the more rigid the money supply, the more people will choose to store their time, energy, wealth there. And then if the capital stock, non-money capital stock is growing, then that would be reflected in an appreciation of the purchasing power of money. And this is like what gold has been roughly 1 ounce of gold is equal to a fine man's suit for like 100 years, right? But if you look at the price in dollars, it's gone from, I don't know, $30 to $1,200.
That's interesting. Like that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had an insight on that, but now it is gone, hopefully to come back at some point. So going to the sort of next layer deeper. So the book, The Sovereign Individual, which I've not read, but I've heard you talk about so many times. It predicts a lot of things that we're seeing. It predicted cyber cash, crypto, obviously. But it predicted social media. So what is the key insight to that book that allows it to predict all these things? And does it give us any insight moving forward?
Yeah. It called social media narrowcasting as opposed to broadcasting, which I thought was interesting. It also predicted that as the digital age started to really progress, that governments would likely resort to pandemic-like situations to try and reinforce the validity of their borders.
Yikes.
Which is interesting.
What year was this written?
This was written in 1997.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the key insight is, again, the logic of violence. And the main point that they make is that cryptography allows us to insulate things or defend assets in a way that is many orders of magnitude cheaper than anything ever before, so that the cost of defense has plummeted, which you could say has a commensurate increase to the cost benefit ratio of coercion, right? All of a sudden why break into the guy's house if you can't steal his Bitcoin? Why invade the country if you can't take their Bitcoin? That type of thing. That it would have a decentralizing effect on government, because government is as large as it is because it extracts monopoly profits through seigniorage, through inflation, through taxation, right? None of these are mutually negotiated free market phenomenon. These are all imposed, and they're all able to be imposed because people had no alternative. There was no alternative monetary system. It's like you have to have a bank account, right? Before Bitcoin, what else did you do? Bury gold in your yard, right? I mean, it's pretty hard to transact gold globally. So that's the key insight. And the book, I'll warn you, it's a bit of a dry read, but I would highly recommend getting through it. I think there's a lot of good insights there. Yeah,
that's it. The whole idea of decentralization and all of the things that it's going to change. And again, my entry point was NFTs because for everybody, I think there's going to be something that's relevant to your life that forces you to get to first principles thinking. And once you're there and you can predict, then it becomes really fascinating. And as a person in media, what I realized, so I got showed something like 6 years ago. He called it V Atoms. And of course it's become NFTs, but he didn't call it that. And he showed it to me and I was like, yo, that's going to change my business like entirely. And because when I think about So we're trying to build the next Disney. And when I think about that, you start thinking about, we make things in plastic, plush toys, all that stuff. And it's very expensive to make the first one. And so it gets very difficult to like reinforce your brand. And there was this moment back in the 80s where you could do what they called selling from the shelf, where you would promote the He-Man cartoon with toys on the shelf. And so they knew that moms like mine would take you to Kmart, and you didn't want to go with her to the bra section. So you go to the toy section, and you would see He-Man sitting there, and it would tell you that there was a cartoon. And so you wanted the toy, and you watched the cartoon, and the cartoon advertised the toy. And so it got into this loop where they could actually make enough money to make the cartoons. So anyway, I'm thinking about all this stuff, and I'm like, fuck, it's really expensive. They've changed the laws on advertising and all that stuff. So how am I going to crack that nut? I see these V atoms, and I'm like, whoa, that's going to allow me to create virtual products that, because technology is a one-way street. I had a really hard thesis that people will value digital things in the same way that they value physical things. But the technology wasn't ready for prime time. Flash forward, obviously NFTs hit, and I'm like, whoa, okay, I recognize this is that V atoms thing. Like, I'm all the way in. But that, to be able to understand what I could truly do with it, I had to learn the technology, which forced me to understand blockchain, smart contracts, all that stuff. And then you're like, oh my God, now you can predict where all this is going to go. And that technology, the decentralization of things, the trustless nature of it all, man, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around the business implications. Like when you start thinking about DAOs, because I'm a traditional business guy. And so I'm thinking, whoa, DAOs are really going to come in. It's going to be a fascinating challenge to the traditional way of doing business, which is highly centralized. And so then I'm like, all right, is Steve Jobs right? And that by creating this walled garden, you can create something better? Or is Wikipedia right? Or Android, maybe a better analogous example, where it's this open system and it's more decentralized, and you let anybody use your operating system that wants to. And man, it's the change that's coming and the rapidity with which it's going to hit us is thrilling if you're looking at it through the right lens. Certainly from a business perspective, I've never been this excited in my life ever. Like, this is, it's a moment of disruption. And so in fact, I'm going to put a slight, I think your enthusiasm for Bitcoin captures my enthusiasm for just the moment of disruption that we're living through right now, where when you have, and because in business, it's not scary the way that it's scary thinking about nation states, until NFTs, I was looking at how do I beat Disney at their own game? And so I told my team when we founded the company, I said, our job is to stay in business long enough to figure this out, because I don't right now see the path. Trying to beat Disney at their own game is a losing endeavor. They're 90 years ahead of us. They have untold billions of dollars in revenue. This is all pre-pandemic. And they have billions of dollars in IP. And I was like, whoa. Like, that's a really tall order. So the only thing we could do is tell better stories. And we were certainly headed down that path of like, I think I see something culturally that's happening that they seem blind to. And so that was what we were going to capitalize on. And then NFTs happened. I'm like, oh my God, like the disruption now that's going to happen, they will be way slower than we'll be to adopt the technology, certainly to push it to its extremes. And so as things disrupt, for people that are able to get to first principles faster and think and be able to solve novel problems in a novel way, you've got like a real shot at something here. Now that the way that people are going to think of that moment of disruption, the way that they're going to capitalize on this technology, I think brings us to this idea of morality and I don't want to put words in your mouth. So I will simply say the note that I took after listening to you speak on the topic was, I think, Bitcoin as God is what I wrote. And you said, I'm not going to call Bitcoin God, but, and it was the fact that those could even be put in the same, I'm trying to find the exact note that I took. Anyway, it was close to that. So how do these come together? How does Jordan Peterson begin to influence the way that you think about all of this religion, morality, and what's happening with Bitcoin?
Well, that's a lot to unpack there. I would first, the NFT piece. I don't know a tremendous amount about NFTs, but what I would say, and this is in regards to centralization versus decentralization. So many people get lost looking at other alternative crypto assets or NFTs or the projects, thinking that they have the same trust minimized properties as Bitcoin, to say that they are truly decentralized. No one has a political attack vector on the network or the good or whatever it may be. It is my strong opinion that Bitcoin is the only asset that is truly credibly exhibited the qualities of decentralization, right? It's undergone a fork war. People have tried to increase the block size, change the supply, all these things. And Bitcoin is kind of tried and true. It's battle tested. So with NFTs, I would just say, and crypto more generally, NFTs and crypto, I don't think decentralization has been achieved anywhere else. So I'll just leave it at that, just so people, that is the key difference, is that Bitcoin is the one asset in the world that no one can control. One thing I wanted to say about the Disney battle, this may work in your favor actually, is that should Bitcoin monetize and succeed as I have laid out, this will move us to a much more free market, laissez-faire, capitalistic market environment where something like IP goes away. IP won't exist. Because IP right now is premised on litigation, right? Someone violates your IP, you go and sue them. In a Bitcoinized world, it's going to be much more cost prohibitive to enforce IP.
Why?
So that might work in your favor.
I don't understand that.
Largely because property won't be violable, right? If Bitcoin were the sole money in the world, it would be really hard to sue someone for their Bitcoin. It'd be very, very hard to enforce that. Now, had you staked some of that Bitcoin with a local governance model,
that assumes though that governments have essentially vanished from how we think of them now, right?
They will have transformed significantly. Yes. The point being that it's much less economic to enforce IP. I could just leave it at that. It is a long game thing, and it would be a dramatic change, but might work in your favor trying to take out Disney.
Yeah, that's interesting. We could definitely get lost in that rabbit hole, but I don't want to deprive people of hearing this whole thing about morality.
Yes. So
I find very interesting.
We've published a book that I authored with Jimmy Song, as a fellow Bitcoiner, and a group of others, titled "Thank God for Bitcoin." This has received some criticism because people always go back to this quote in the Bible: "The love of money is the root of all evil." We're by no means advocating the love of money or the love of Bitcoin or that Bitcoin is God, by the way. We wrote a moral treatise on the history of money. I don't even think we mentioned the word Bitcoin until 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the book. And we looked at it through a Judeo-Christian lens, and what the Bible references money many, many times. And I think it's written to be very accessible, almost like C.S. Lewis style, very short, punctuated sentences. You can read the whole book in maybe 2 hours. But the people that do read it report it being very transformational to their understanding of money, right? You go in with this question, just like, what is money? What is Bitcoin? And you leave with a good foundational understanding of answers to those two questions. This is part of my own personal journey, I guess. I was raised in Tennessee. I grew up Christian. I was in church on Wednesdays and Sundays. I was always a very scientifically minded young man. I became very fascinated with astrophysics. When I started reading by myself around the age of 11, I went straight to the deep end of the pool. As I like to joke, I was reading Stephen Hawking and Brian Greene.
Jesus.
I was just enamored looking up at the night sky, like, what is all this? And so I thought, okay, now that I know how to read, I'm going to go try and figure it out. I was reading these books I could barely comprehend, but I think it just sparked this deep curiosity in me. But at the time, it also inspired a bit of an atheism in a way. I was just very scientific, like I thought Christianity was almost a fairy tale at this point. And this persisted through most of my teenage life. And then later on, I'll gloss over some of this, but I discovered yoga. Yoga was very transformational for me. Reintroduced me, I guess, to the spiritual aspects of life. I got into meditation. Meditation changed my life. I always had trouble sleeping. I was an overthinker with meditation. Once I learned, lights out in 30 seconds every night now, which is a big deal if you can't sleep, reliably. And so I was less scientific, more spiritual, but I had not revisited Christianity until through Bitcoin, actually. I was introduced to Jordan Peterson and his work. And he's, in my opinion, one of the greatest living lecturers. I would call him a philosopher. He really gets at the fundamental nature of things, and he looks at the world through many different lenses. And in that way, that method of kind of consilience, right? Looking what he calls multivariate analysis, looking at different topics through different lenses. One of the main ones is the Judeo-Christian lens. He lended a lot of credence to religion to me. All of a sudden, it was not this fairy tale that I dismissed in my younger years, and I started to really look into it more closely. I'm still looking.
So if it wasn't that fairy
closely.
tale, then what does it hint at?
So my current view, and I love Peterson's answer to this, that people often ask him, does he believe in God? And he says, I don't believe in God, but I act as if he exists. So in my mind, that is Peterson putting the emphasis on human action. That's what matters. And if you look at the Austrian school, you'll learn that all human action is an expression of value. To walk across the room implies that you value being on the other side of the room more than you value sitting where you currently are. So we are constantly and unavoidably expressing our values through action. And looking at Christianity, it is the Bible specifically, it's not just a moral text, right? If you read it from the Old Testament to the New Testament, it goes through this moral development of humanity. There's a lot more kind of barbarism early on, and it shows how we learned and developed and changed over time. So I think it points to the emergence of morality. Morality sort of emerges from the rules of the game, if you will. Like we can set our sights on something and work towards it, but the ultimate implementation of the morality really depends on the actual implementation of systems and technologies in a way. So, and Peterson has this definition of God. God's such a loaded term. I hate even talking about it sometimes because people, they're either, oh, guy in the sky, yeah, right, or God is everything, you can't even talk about it. Peterson has a number of definitions. One, he says, in that hierarchy of values, right, we all have this rank ordered set of values in our mind. Whatever we're doing in the moment is an expression of our current value. If I take a sip of water, it means I value a sip of water more than talking in that moment. Peterson says that God is the highest value in the hierarchy of values. So it's almost like we're expressing God through action in a way. God is kind of like this animating force or principle in life. I think it was G.K. Chesterton said that a dead thing, only a living thing can swim upstream. A dead thing can go with it. Maybe I've inverted that, but it's
no, that's right.
There's this principle to life that, the entire universe tends towards greater entropy, more disorder, but life is antithetical to that. We actually are an organizing force, right? We negate entropy, we construct order. And that is the ancient idea I got from Peterson's work that's in Genesis in the Bible. It's that God is that force that courageously confronts the chaos of nature, converts it into good and useful order. And I think that force and that principle is embodied in the entrepreneur. Actually, that's what the entrepreneur is doing, right? You're going out into uncertainty. You're putting your skin in the game. You're staking your life, your capital, your ideas, your reputation, everything, trying to pull something out of that unknown or that chaos that's useful and good for others. So I think, and the entrepreneur is the elementary unit of the free market, right? So I think the free market itself, this idea of freedom being a creative principle, is very closely connected to God. Maybe another way to look at God is this, it's clearly he's eternal. he, I'm not anthropomorphizing him, I'm just using what's there. This principle is eternal, which means it's outside of space and time. What other elements of experience do we have that are outside of space and time? Truth, love, freedom, right? These things that they're timeless, right? And they're very important to all these things we've talked about, right? These foundational documents, markets, revolutions, they've been fought over these timeless ideals. And I think somehow God is kind of a composite of those in a way. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they're all creative principles, right? Truth, as I've argued in a lot of my writing, markets discover truth. They discover prices and tools. Love is clearly a creative principle. That's how we all got here. And then freedom. Freedom is how we maximize wealth in the marketplace. Free trade, as we've talked about today.
Me too.
So
this episode
I'm way out there on the philosophical side of things, but to try and bring it home. If God is the highest value in a hierarchy of values, another definition Peterson has given of God is the truthful speech, which rectifies pathological hierarchies. And I would define a pathological hierarchy as one that is premised on anything that negates truth or freedom or love. And that is precisely what our current socioeconomic hierarchy is built on. Central banking destroys price signals. We didn't talk about this a lot today, but there's a saying in markets that price is truth. This is the extant supply of capital in the world overlaid with the human demands for that capital is the price, right? It's dynamically updating in real time. It is the truth of what is right now, right? Whatever something is selling for or clearing on the market, that is truth. Another thing markets generate is innovation. So the truth of digging a hole is a shovel, right? It is the best, most truthful, real way we figured out to satisfy that want at that price. And then the third thing markets are very heavily involved with is the development or promulgation of virtue. So we learn that honesty is more energy efficient in the marketplace than deception, right? If you tell a lie, and everyone's experienced this to some extent, you tell one white lie, then you have to tell another second lie, maybe to cover it up. And it always blows up, right? It's not good. You're creating this little fork of reality to try and maybe overcome some short-term pain, but you end up exacerbating long-term pain, right? So this is a virtue that's discovered through free exchange and free interaction. Central banking destroys all that. It destroys price signals. It subdues innovation, right? Your entrepreneurs are setting out. So prices are supply and demand, but when the central bank's involved, you can't trust the price. You don't know if it's supply and demand or policy. When you can't trust the price, you can't organize your affairs effectively towards satisfying the wants of others. I don't know if this price increase is because more people want the table or because this table is really scarce and the central bank's printing a lot of money, right? So me as an entrepreneur, I may be thinking, oh, people like tables. I want to produce a lot more. I don't know. I can't disentangle the two. So distorting prices misleads entrepreneurs, which unwinds that process of confronting the chaos of nature, converting it into order. And then it induces moral wickedness. And that all of a sudden, your strategy, again, is to get as close to the fiat currency spigot as possible, because that's the lowest effort means of obtaining wealth. If I can just become a shareholder to a central bank, I now have a share in a company, a central bank, that bears perpetual profits to me. I don't have to work. My incentives to work and satisfy the wants of market actors is diminished. So that, I argue, is diminishing to virtue. And so I think it's evil. I do think central banking is evil. And I'm not even saying that the institution was set out without intent. I'm just saying that mechanically it becomes the invariant to human action that causes strategies to be adapted to getting as close to the fiat currency spigot as possible versus being an entrepreneur. It's anti-entrepreneurial. Let's put it that way. Entrepreneurs are the hero of the marketplace. They go onto the hero's journey. They go out, they get their clock cleaned, learn the hard way, like I have, as you said you have, and we take those lessons, we embody them, we adapt our strategy, and we come back. And hopefully we either create something of value to others and we succeed, or even when we don't succeed as entrepreneurs, our failure benefits the marketplace, because other entrepreneurs can say, that guy tried to open an Italian restaurant on that block and it failed. I'm going to not do that. I'm going to go do something else, right? So it's information feedback into the hierarchy of human organization. And central banking distorts and obscures all that. So that was a lot to unpack, and there's a lot of rabbit holes into my writing there, but I hope that generally answered it.
No, man, it did. And dude, I was blown away by researching you, by spending time with you. Like it's crazy. You really have an amazing ability to think through this stuff and then articulate it for people. Where can people follow you, join you on this journey?
I just want to thank you for having me, by the way.
Dude, round awesome. One, I assure you the next time you're in LA,
I don't want to thank everybody for tuning in.
There's so much more that we could go into.
Damn.
That is for sure.
This was great, man. I really admire what you've done, and hope to emulate some of that myself. I just got into the media game, actually. My background's in accounting, finance. I was running a hedge fund. But this quote with, I think it was H.G. Wells, civilization is a race between education and catastrophe.
It's a great quote.
That quote just really hit me hard. Saylor has this big focus on education. I heard that quote around that time too. And as an entrepreneur, I'm just trying to listen to the market. People have appreciated my writing and my talking. So I want to focus on that. I want to help enshrine the importance of inviolable property and what it means for humanity. So that's the direction I've gone. The show I launched is called the What is Money Show. So I'm trying to incept that idea into people's mind. I'm on YouTube, whatismoneypodcast.com. And then you could find me on Twitter at breedlove22, which is my last name, BREEDLOVE.
First time trying that. Good to know. I go the opposite way.
Awesome, man. Thank you again so much for coming on the show. Boys and girls, be sure to follow him. Trust me, it will blow your mind. And speaking of things that will blow your mind, if you haven't already, be sure to...
All right. Well, this has been an experience. I want to thank you. Shout out to the 7 viewers for tuning in. Fucking 7s. Gotta love it. So we're good to go. So a few thoughts out the gate for this ledger. Give it a full charge. And just, I don't know, like we haven't even set anything up yet, but just browsing the web while we were watching that episode, recent too, tons of issues with this, tons of brick, tons of lemons, tons of just what we were experiencing. I was worried that we were going to switch. I backed up and powered on an S, and it powered on right away. So that we were going to do this one instead, but I did get this one working. Just because like the monkey in me, I just started spamming buttons and it unbricked it. It unlocked that screen. And all the suggestions online like did not work, except for me spamming the shit out of these keys and like doing these weird sequences trying to reset it. So we're live. We're good. The only thing I don't have, you guys should be able to see it from there. Actually, I can see it on the screen, which is pretty sweet. I'll make sure when we go more in depth and do transactions back and forth, after this initial giveaway, we'll have that second camera view pointing right here. So it should be more fluid and valuable for everybody watching. So let me know if you guys have any questions along the way, and we're just going to get rolling with it. Let's go back to this screen right here. All right, so one, bam. So initially looking through the screen here, it's just left and right. So you see this initial button on the bottom hand side when you open it up, right? The other button is in the hinge. So you see this little silver plate and this circle. That's the left or right buttons right there. You can see it on the screen too. I didn't even notice that. So start ledger live, get assistance, set up new device. We're going to set up new device, toggle to it, press both of them at the same time. Now we get to choose a PIN code of 4 to 8 digits. I'm just going to use 1111 for the sake of the demo. The question is, do we go next to choose it? Okay, yeah. All right, so this screen locks up when you see it, and you got to follow through when you plug it in. So just telling you how to use it here. Recovery phrase. All right, this is a demo. I'm a factory reset this for private use. So, I mean, if you want to write it down, but there's going to be no transactions. So you just follow through. I mean, it's pretty basic. I know I haven't really read thoroughly each step. I'm not going to walk through and bore you guys with the text on the screen. I'm just following through the steps that I take. I want to make sure I didn't miss it. It's like we're going through instructions still. It's almost like, hey, did you write it down? Okay, your recovery phrase is your last chance, blah, blah, blah. We know this. Wait a second. No. So I'm guessing it's going to be on the nano screen. So I love it. So here I am being impatient as fuck because we've been streaming and waiting for this thing to charge. Let's go back. Because I did not write this shit down. All right. You got to press both buttons again to initiate each step. So follow along the screen. I'm glad we're doing this together. This is funny. I appreciate you, Chris. I appreciate you. We've learned a lot of that this episode, eh? So you go left, right to pick the numbers. Spam both at the same time to select the number. I guess I didn't have to tell you guys what it was going to be. And then you got to confirm it. So I'm just doing ones across the board. Keep it simple and easy. And then it does give you the option to go up to 8 characters. It's up to you, but it gives you this little check mark. It's not showing it on the screen, but it gives you this little check mark on the 5th hyphen. So if you want to just press both buttons, since we're only using 4 digits. All right, so now it's saying write down your recovery phrase. Press both buttons, take you into it. Warning, these 24 words are your only backup. Secure them carefully. Right word number 1. I guess I'm not going to have to factory reset this. I thought it was going to be on screen. It's kind of cool. This is more involved. So give me a second. Let me actually write these down. And I'll just verbally walk you guys through what I'm seeing because shit, if I don't have to factory reset this thing, all the better. And then you just go left, right. So it's pretty simple. It just keeps that's so funny. I was like, is it still in the camera view? Somebody's about to snipe this seed phrase. It all like I really don't think I'm going to use this one, all honesty, but I just want to go through the motion. Show you guys the process and gals, step by step. And then we do the giveaway. We'll see. I'll challenge you. I'll put 1 ETH in there. Watch you guys try to get these reflections and shit. Hey, I can't wait for this Friday. Shout out to Stephanie and Manny. We're going to have them on the show as an interview. We're also going to talk some NFT news. And I'm excited to talk about some of these projects that have been on my radar and that have been just floating around. And I can't wait to share with you guys my progress on what I acquire through Impact Theory's project. Trying to get as much as possible there. They're limiting the whitelist to 1 per wallet on pretty much all of them, I'm pretty sure. The only one they didn't verbally limit was Heroic. So we'll see. Did anybody here, out of curiosity, while I'm going through this, did anybody apply for the whitelist on Impact Theory's launch? It's not too late. Like you might think it is, but it's really not. Especially for the legendary tier. Maybe by now, but earlier today, it was still good. So as you can see, it's really simple and quick. Like I'm just going through it. The screen doesn't, die on you. Ah, man, I know the feeling. I know we all get there. ETH poor is what we call it, right? When we're just ETH poor, we don't even have enough to cancel the thing. Oh, we winter time. You gotta have a little reserve stash. So now I get the option after going through all 24 words. It says press left to verify your 24 words. Or it appears this is the second option. Press both buttons to continue. I'm going to trust in what I wrote down, and I'm not going to go through the verify. But for peace of mind, if you're like really storing this thing and you want to be sure it's the right one, and I'm going to intercept, never give out your seed phrase. Never store it digitally. And if you store it on paper, make multiple copies. Put them in a safe, a fire safe envelope. Nobody's going to look there for valuables. Come on now. You can just stack that in between a whole bunch of old school newspapers or mail or some shit. That's boring. Not that I do that, but I'm just giving you an idea off the top. So it's saying confirm word 1. Oh, cool. So it's probably just going to randomly pick certain words to confirm. I'm guessing left is no, right is yes. What the fuck? All wrong. What is going on here? I'm just hitting left. I probably should have hit right. No. Okay. Oh, you really gotta. Oh. All right. So they make you go through the motion the verify process on the previous screen must have been to write it down. Regardless, you got to go through the motion and pick between 1 and 24 words, and they're not in the same order, but they're all the same words. They were looking familiar, so you just got to go through it and confirm one at a time. So I'll let you know what buttons I'm pressing. So I'm just going left and right to find the next one. And then I'm hitting both of them to confirm, and then it moves on to 3. Confirm. I just realized the music turned off, eh? You guys want that back on? I can turn that on real quick. Only 6 in. Shit, yeah. I want you guys to be too bored there. We'll keep playing this.
Anthony Pompliano, welcome to the show, man.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Dude, I am really excited. So there's something
So I'm not going to repeat the buttons I'm pressing. I think you guys got the motion of this. You're just going left, right, press both to confirm, move forward. We're on 10 right now. So just bear with me here. And I'm not sure if you guys remember, or if I went too in depth. Gary would know. I'm pretty sure he tuned out. I walked through a myetherwallet.com seed phrase on how to set everything up. We're going to do a whole nother episode on that. I know I was mentioning it earlier on, but I'm curious to see if this seed phrase can be recoverable outside of the hardware wallet. That's peace of mind, right? My primary concern with any type of hardware wallet is you're dependent on that manufacturer staying in business and not going under or not succumbing to an attack, right? Digitally, like, right, maliciously. Not to say they store your seed phrases, but nevertheless, like, that's always been my concern, right? So, and they don't remove the words from the pool. It doesn't look like, right? Because I keep seeing the same words pop up that I've already entered in. Oh yeah, it looks like Twitch just booted everybody. That's weird. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Twitch just booted everybody. Should be coming back. I wonder if that's my end. Shit, my bad. Everybody will be back, I'm sure. Gives me some time to do this boring part. We're on 23. All right, processing. Your device is ready. Let's try to go full screen so you guys can see the screen maybe. Access dashboard. Press both. And it takes you to this little menu. Control center, install app. So let's go back over here. Let's see what this graphic user interface is telling us. I like these quizzes. Oh, you guys aren't even seeing it, huh? Doy squirrel. All right, so it's already connected and unlocked. And then you got to confirm. So press both buttons. You'll see that text on your screen, allow ledger manager, identical. You just press both. It'll take you back to the home screen with all the icons. And you're all good. Cool. So this is going to be our first account. We want to add the account. We can add an array, but for the sake of the topics that we're doing, the giveaways, and everything. Cool. Yeah, sorry about that. It looks like Twitch booted everybody. So hopefully everybody finds their way back. We're just finishing up the process. So if you have any questions, let us know, please. And then we'll be going more in depth. Like what I'd like to do with the winners is do a one-on-one and also help you answer any questions. We can record it. We can do a screen share on my end or something fun. That way we can see how you're using the device and help answer any questions and provide peace of mind, right? Because I know these things can be scary, trusting something like this with all your digital assets. We're gonna do ETH, good old ETH. Yeah, assuming the winner's cool with it too, right? You know, I know not everybody wants, and not everybody has to do video. We can do audio, but I think it'd be really cool to do a collaborative approach after the fact, because I'm sure there'll be some questions we answer just jamming live one-on-one for the audience and anybody else who gets one of these. Yeah, so as you guys see the screen prompt here, it automatically did what it needed to do. I didn't have to click on anything here. So we're just going to tap both buttons. Application is ready. So I'm assuming that's just you confirming, hey, I'd like to add this address. Oh, shit. Hey, I've been noticing a bunch of these pens exploding on me. Damn, I almost just licked it. Oh, you know, damn right I was that kid just like, what's glue? Okay, so where's my address? I want to see the numbers. Get it? So we'll go hit receive. There should be like an ID manager. So I always, anytime I'm personally setting up a new wallet, right? A new seed, a new key store file, whatever it is, I always like to just grab a copy of it. This is my method. You guys don't have to adopt it. I open up Notepad, I throw it in there, and then I save it as right? Just wherever. And then I throw the address in the text too. That way it's easy to just copy the file name. And then you can move it to your digital notepad or whatever. I throw it on my desktop just to remind me to store it and archive it properly, or index it properly, you know, in all my database of wallets. Just a little tip. Hope you guys find that one helpful. Of course, you can use a Google Keep or something like that. I also use that one because it seamlessly syncs across all your devices. So any notes you put on one, any notes you put on the desktop, they immediately synchronize across all the devices, which is pretty sweet. So, hey, if you guys want to send me some ETH, I'm kidding. But somebody's probably going to see this on the recording. I'm not going to take the time to put this in the bio. I'm probably going to delete this, though, to be honest with you. This is a fun little test, though. So it is asking me something here. Verify the address. Here I am babbling on, right? And looks like it's asking me to do something. So squirrel. Verify address. So you want to hit right. And for me, when I verify addresses, yeah, one little trick I've always done, and this has worked across all the different currencies for the most part. Some of the starting strings on certain are different, but I'll look at the first 5 or 6, maybe 7 characters, and then the last 4 to 3, the last visible ones, because you'll notice on your MetaMask, it'll generally show you the first few and the first last. That's just always what I've done. I've never like really reread it all the way through, but you know, if this is a long-term stow for you and you just want that peace of mind, go one by one. But for the sake of just how I normally do things, this looks correct. Q. So now you're done. That's all you got to do to send stuff to it. Now, I personally always, rule of thumb, never trust anything. For any new setup, you send a little 0.01, 0.001 or whatever, just as minimal as possible. Have it make sense to where if you lose it, you lose it. It's no big deal. Don't just send your NFTs out the gate to something like this. Always test it. Always test it. You know what I mean? Don't always just send a bulk to it. So that's what I would do next. And what we'll do is we'll break down a video doing that next. But I think we've waited long enough. This thing's pretty sweet. I will say, after that little debacle, just make sure you practice patience when you receive this thing and charge it overnight. And then if it does look like it's bricked, just spam the shit out of the buttons. Try to hold them at the same time. Try to alternate them. And I got mine working. So the winner's going to get a sealed one. I'm not going to test it. It's not going to be opened over here. It was ship sealed to me. It's going to be ship sealed to you. So let's get to it. How do I want to do this one today? Before we get to it, anybody got any questions on that process, or was that pretty straightforward? And I must say, I like how they used a 24 seed phrase. Would have been cool if they added in a custom word. What that technically does is it'll utilize your initial 24 seed phrase as the root. So you get that set of addresses, right? And then depending on the wallet tool, right? The My Ether wallet allows it, right? You can create your own custom password at the end, but you can really just extend it as many words as you want to and make it real fucking complicated. Awesome. Hey, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let's get to it. So we're gonna do the Wheel of Fortune one. I like that one, and I'm just gonna put in, we got 5 viewers right now, so I'm thinking just 1 through 10. Don't put in your number yet. Don't you dare fucking do it. Be patient. Don't make me DQ you. I love it. Thank you so much for your patience and you tuning in. I really appreciate it. We'll make sure the future giveaways and demos, I'll charge things overnight. I kind of enjoyed. I don't know about you guys, but I enjoyed the intermission. Maybe because I selfishly wanted to watch that episode. Or maybe with 5 viewers, just do 1 through 7. Nah, we'll do 1 through 10. I gotta test this first. No, don't you dare. You had that prepped, didn't you? You were waiting. You were ready. I hope everybody else is tuning in. Nobody squirreled away. Okay. All right, we good. We are good. So I found this new website. We're gonna rock with it. I put in 1 through 10 on this wheel, and all we gotta do is click to spin, and it spins it. So I'm gonna hit time, and I'm gonna give everybody 3 to 4 minutes. We're just gonna jam on something to enter in their numbers, just in case somebody lost focus. But let's hop in. So time, go ahead and enter in a number 1 through 10. Go, 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 go. Oh, okay. I see it's 9 now, right? So it's 9. 9 is 9. I love it. Fuck yeah. Well, let's do it. Well, we'll give it. I feel like everybody who's paying attention is paying attention, right? I know you guys would probably have me spin it. Like anybody who's not. Oh, shit. All right, let's do it. The moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do it. Oh, the winner is Cyclone Singer. What's fitting? Congratulations. Fuck yeah. Congratulations. What's fitting is that's my number. That's the number of BitMonkey. Like, had to be, right? It had to be. And A, full transparency, there was like no way to preset no numbers here. So this is kind of cool though. Boom. Congratulations. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. I used to say that all the time. I know, that's so awesome. So I'm looking forward. Yeah. Shoot me. If you're not already in the Discord, please do hop in the Discord. Let me grab you a link. I can't remember if I've seen you in there. But shoot me a DM on Discord. Add me. I'll get your address, and we'll ship it by the end of the week and get you an ETA on your hardware wallet. So I'm looking forward to connecting afterwards and seeing the process, seeing how the process goes, answering any questions you may have. For everybody else, we're going to be going live on Friday for NFT Fridays. It's going to be a fun day. There's going to be a surprise giveaway, but we're not going to do a demo beforehand. And it's going to be, you don't have to be there live, I decided. I'm still on the fence because I know different time zones kind of fucks with it. So I'm thinking the next giveaway on Friday, we're going to span it over the course of a week or something. through Discord. So I'll decide by Friday. Just tune in Friday is what I'm getting at. Fuck yeah. I could have sworn I've seen your name in there. So thank you so much for being here. I love it. Hey, if you're that lucky, let's go. Let's go. I like that single deck, double deck, blackjack. Single deck, double deck, blackjack. Oh, your name's Chris too? All right, that's easy. I didn't know. I was just saying in my head, Cyclone. I couldn't put a face to the, a name to the face or face to the name, digital name. You know what I mean? But dude, congratulations. That's fucking dope. Let's fucking go. So yeah, we'll talk in Discord. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I think we're going to call it a wrap. I think that was a great one. Nice little squirrel moments, nice little pivot, rolling with the punches. Overall review, I was upset. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. So Chris, charge this thing when you get it, and don't touch it until you wake up the next day, because that was a little frustrating. You might not experience the same thing, but yeah, no worries, no worries. As you could tell, we've been going through some changes, and I'm really trying to create an environment, a dashboard where I want to be in 24/7. So I'm trying to find unique ways to incorporate other news feeds and blogs and media and videos and things like that. Just to keep everything crypto creative right there in one central hub, as well as NFTs. So yeah, like overall, I like it. This one's a solid piece of hardware. This plastic, like compared to this other one, we'll do a comparison video, another one. It's just different. They're both, I mean, feel like plastic, but it's cool peace of mind knowing that without using this to confirm, nobody can move anything in or out of your wallet unless, of course, repeat after me, do not give out your seed phrase, because that bypasses anything like this. Like, it defeats the whole purpose of this. So keep that shit safe. Never give out your private key, your seed phrase, anything that sounds like it's important. Check with the community. Come hop in the Discord. Ask us questions. This is that point where it's time to say goodbye. So thank you for tuning in. If you found value here, if you enjoyed this, there's going to be more giveaways. There's going to be one every Tuesday through the holiday season while I'm still in the country. So I know when I go to Portugal, it's going to be unique doing the show. So I'm not sure if I'm going to take all the equipment with me or yet, or how I'm going to work that. But we'll be talking. So I'll be here every day, Monday through Friday until then, though. So much love. Thank you guys for tuning in. And yeah, thanks again. Hope everybody has a good evening, day, afternoon, wherever you're at. Peace.